Driving in at number 2. Here's what a bus looks like.
You can. For God's sakes, don't try to walk drunk. If you are drunk, get in a car where you'll be safe.
Again, students and staff are asked to dress down in case you're needed to pitch in on the flood fight. UND is open, but classes are canceled today and tomorrow. All East Grand Forks adult and youth community education classes are canceled for the rest of this week and all of next week. The Hawley community is taking food, toiletry, and paper item donations for Ada flood victims. Items can be dropped off at Wall Drug and Ron's Super Value in Hawley. The communities of Findlay and Sharon are also collecting food items or dollar donations for the Valley's flood effort. Those items should be dropped off at the Findlay-Sharon School. The Salvation Army needs volunteers at its disaster center in Fargo. Call 277-1300. Southeastern North Dakota Community Action Agency Child Care Center will provide free child care for families affected by the flood. You should call 232-2452 for more information. Now, these church activities are canceled. All of tonight's activities at Nativity. Hope Lutheran South Campus, 8th, 7th, and 9th grade classes are canceled. St. Joseph's Catholic Church in Moorhead, all religious education and youth activities are called off. United Lutheran in Grand Forks is canceling Cathedral Choir tonight. The Villa Maria Volunteer Recognition, scheduled for tomorrow, postponed until mid-May. And the March of Dimes Walk America is postponed until May 18th.
The water is quite deep. There's a garage off in the distance there that is underwater, and just off in the distance there is Oak Creek. That's just north of us. So that's the situation here right now. We don't know yet if things are going, if the water is still going up. We'll have Mayor Bruce Furness on live with us at 6 o'clock, so hopefully he'll be able to tell us that.
Okay, see you then. A special hour-long edition of News 11 at 6. Here's NBC.
It's a possible mega deal in the making. The biggest tobacco company.
Flooding.
I'm Tracy Briggs in North Fargo, where the city is building an earthen dike to protect some residents.
I'm Kip Hines in Moorhead. The higher the water climbs, the more nervous people are getting.
I'm Austin Chow in Breckenridge. The city lost its south end of town, but it's determined to save the north end of town, especially this hospital.
And Kevin Wollivan will have a satellite report from LiveStar in Jamestown as they prepare the flood fight in that city.
John says it'll warm up a little tomorrow. He'll have his forecast for us.
And Dana with a story about a new recruit for
south of Fargo, homeowners had only a few hours to brace themselves. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being with us tonight. Flood fight action hit fever pitch in Fargo today. Overflows from the Wild Rice River started moving overland across I-29 toward southwest Fargo. Robin Hubner is at Meadow Creek Drive and 25th Street South, where we can see some of the action that was prompted by all this. Robin?
Charlie, you're right. I'm at Meadow Creek. Just north of me is Oak Creek, and what happened is this water from the Wild Rice River started pushing into town late this morning. Instead of going over to the Red River, it started coming, pushing west to I-29 and south across 52nd Avenue South. And so it just kept pushing into southwest Fargo here, and it snaked around some of these homes. Now, some of the homeowners here have come and told me that this water we're actually seeing behind me is actually Rose Creek coulee water. So I don't know if we actually know where this water is coming from, but it's probably a combination of that and the Wild Rice River pushing into town. Now, when this started happening late this morning, that's when the alert went out from Mayor Bruce Furness. People in these neighborhoods were told that they should come home, check their property, check their sandbag dikes, maybe shore them up a little bit. They should plug their floor drains, sandbag their window wells, that type of thing, when that alert came out late this morning. It was a very frantic pace initially. Now things seem to have stabilized a little bit, and we'll talk with Mayor Furness in a little bit to see if he's got an idea of if it has in fact stabilized. The Timberline and Fox Run additions, which are just northwest of me here, are at the highest risk for flooding right now, but hundreds of homeowners in these areas as well are scrambling to raise their dikes. Amy Hockert has that story.
This is the water just south of 63rd Avenue South that's causing all the problems, and it's headed toward Fargo.
Keep moving out. Move out!
The approaching water sent volunteers into full swing and homeowners back to square one.
We should get these guys all the way down.
We thought we were safe at most of the yards out here are 39.5 to 40 feet. Obviously built to specifications that we thought would withstand the test of time. Didn't believe we had a problem. Didn't believe we had a problem until this morning.
No one living in these South Fargo neighborhoods can believe what's happened in the last 24 hours.
It's unbelievable. My in-laws have been calling, wondering what's going on, and I said that we have a disaster and we're on the cusp of a calamity for us, and I think we're getting very close to that right now.
Many homeowners were caught off guard. They thought they were in the clear days ago when the river first crested.
It actually was back not even on my property at that time. And we had this dike in place, so we thought, well, we have the dike in place, we're fairly safe. It's probably not going to go up much more than this, even with some rain. And then we get this problem.
27 days to stand on the wall, 27 days to stand.
When word got out that parts of South Fargo were in an emergency situation, entire neighborhoods came out to help top off dikes.
Actually, we've been doing it all week, too. Some of us have been getting out of classes and stuff to help with the sandbag relief effort, and today's classes are canceled, so we're all out here together and trying to get the job done.
City crews are working to build earthen dikes along some of the trouble spots, but they say some flooding is inevitable.
It's serious. We're going to have water on residential streets here for the first time in this whole flood fight. So those people in those areas have to be concerned to protect their window wells, protect their first floor entries, and seal off their basements.
All the dike work is attracting onlookers, and city crews warn that they are only adding to the problem, a problem that is already testing their limits. With photographer Dave Grant, Amy Huckert, KVLY News 11.
And I believe some of that video you just saw of a dike being built is the dike you see right behind us here, holding back some of this water that is rising. Busloads of volunteers have still been coming in here, but I understand more volunteers are needed. So if you are able and willing to help out, you should call the Volunteer Center at 232-9200. Plans for a new dike on Fargo's north side today were put on hold when construction crews had to be pulled away from that site to take care of the problems here in southwest Fargo. The city is still going to build a contingency dike along Elm Street and Woodland Drive south of the VA hospital. It's a backup system to the sandbags already in place.
That was a difficult decision for some of the neighbors there because some of those will be on the wrong side of the dike.
Puts us in a dangerous position, I think, but, you know, it's for the good of the community. It's a lot of homes west of us that are a lot lower.
Nelson and most of her neighbors added a third layer of sandbags to their dikes today. She says the area is protected to a 40-foot crest. The water was too much for an earthen dike near the Moorhead Country Club early this morning. River water broke through around 3 o'clock. The National Guard brought in an emergency delivery of sandbags and volunteers. Some were Clay County Jail inmates who volunteered to help.
Well, the dike went down, came loose down there, and we're trying to save these people's houses.
I was here in '69 when I first come up here from Texas, and it wasn't like this.
The new dike should be good for a river level of up to 40 feet. And Charlie, I understand you're going to go over some of those levels for us. I think there's an updated one for the Fargo, an updated crest for the Fargo Red River. So that's about all we have from here right now. Mayor Furness and Pat Zavril are here. We're going to talk to them in just a couple of minutes.
Okay, Robin, we'll be back to you.
Okay.
Don't go away. Keep the mayor there. Thanks. Robin's right. Here are the latest river levels for you. For the Red River now, at Wahpeton, the latest level, 19.02 feet. Little change, possibly rising to 19.5 in the next 24 to 48 hours. At Hickson, it's at 37.61. Fargo, it was at 38.89 on the automated gauge, the one that's a little bit questionable. The last manual reading reported was 38.5, but that was a little while ago. The Weather Service says now the red will rise to 39 feet by early tomorrow. It's getting very close now. Then perhaps rise slowly to about 39.5 feet by April 19th, excuse me, or 20th. At Halstead now, the river's at 39.76 with an expected crest of 41 to 42.5 feet on April 19th to the 21st. Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, the red is at 48.40, rising to 49 to 49.5 by tomorrow, mostly due to faster than expected flows from the Red Lake River, then slowly rising to a new crest of 50.5 feet, April 20th to the 22nd. That's a revised forecast for Grand Forks, East Grand Forks. Looking at the Wild Rice River now at Abercrombie, it's cresting at about 24.88. The Wild Rice in Minnesota at Hendrum is 32.82 feet, headed for 35 to 35.5 April 19th or 20th. The Cheyenne River at Valley City, 16.46, little change over the next 24 hours. Lisbon, slow rise from 14.98 for the next 2 days. At Kindred, it's steady at 19.20, little change expected. The Diversion at West Fargo, 22.45, little change. The Cheyenne at Harwood at 891.96, little change expected. It's holding steady. Maple River at Endelin is near its crest at 11.67. At Mapleton, it's believed to have crested at 14 feet. The Buffalo River at Hawley, 9.26, has crested and is in a slow fall, or will be soon. At Dilworth, it's at 22.40, same situation there. Excuse me. The Red Lake River at Crookston is at 27.5 feet. They believe that's near crest, a new record level. We'll keep you updated. The Marsh River at Shelley, 23.1 feet, cresting at 24 to 25 on April 17th to the 21st. Of course, the Army Corps of Engineers has been instrumental in construction of dikes to protect the valley up and down. The Corps' Tim Birchie is with our Darren Selvig now at the Dike West in downtown Fargo. Darren, of course, at 5 o'clock you showed us some tape there. There's new activity at the dike as well.
That's right. We're on 2nd Street South, right near the dike, and behind us, Charlie, you may be able to see that the water is creeping up quite close to that dike, almost up to the top. Tim tells me that they've been building up that dike about 18 inches now at this place and in other places. Is that right, Tim?
Yeah, that's right. I guess the city volunteers came out and threw about 18 inches worth of sandbags on a couple low areas on the permanent dikes here down by the Heartland Hospital. And throughout the city, we're scrambling with the city to try and keep ahead of this rising water and putting a foot to a foot and a half on in places, just trying to stay ahead of it.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, I sure haven't. I'd have to be 100 years old, I guess, to see anything like this. We're approaching a 500-year flood elevation in Fargo, and I've never seen water like this in a river or in the countryside as well.
As we've been standing here chatting, you've been taking some phone calls on your cell phone, quite a few of them, talking to a lot of people. Who are you in contact with, and how are you coordinating your flood fighting efforts here?
Well, in Fargo here, obviously, in almost constant contact with the city officials on prioritizing areas, where we're going to go next, what we're going to do in certain areas, how much fill to put in, and before we move on to another area. And just working almost constantly with the city. Certainly, also, we have other crews in Grand Forks and on up the valley, and we're coordinating those efforts as well.
Obviously, we don't want to give up the flood fight yet. I know you don't. Are we getting to the point, though? You alluded a couple of minutes ago before we went on the air, you alluded to the fact that there have been a couple of discussions about when do we stop, when do we just have to give up? Tell me about that.
Well, I guess so. Hopefully we'll never say give up, but there are some times when you have to really put priorities on areas and not waste your resources fighting in areas where it's not really a winnable battle anymore. I don't think we've come on any of those yet in Fargo. Certainly in Breckenridge, we had to kind of cut the town in half the other evening, and because the north side stayed pretty dry, and we lost some homes on the south side to flooding down there. And it's a similar situation. You always have to have that plan out there as to where's your really important areas and focus on those, I guess.
As many viewers know, we are affected by water releases from Lake Traverse, and yesterday when you announced that you were increasing the flows from Lake Traverse, we got a lot of calls from viewers wondering why the Corps doesn't draw down those dikes more down there when we have high snowpack during certain winters. Explain a little bit about that.
Well, the plan, I'd like to dispel that myth, because the plan at Lake Traverse, and it was followed this year when you have extreme snowfalls, water content like we have, is to draw the reservoir down. And we were actually within, about 2/10 of a foot from the sill where we no longer could get water out of Lake Traverse, where it wouldn't be that the lake was dry, but that we could no longer get water out of the dam. The concrete sill was that low. So Lake Traverse was drawn down within 2/10 of as far as it could be drawn down this year.
Okay, well, Tim, I know you're a busy guy. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Appreciate it. I'm just going to take 1 second, Charlie, to show you how close this water is getting here on 2nd Street. That's the water line on the street. Some people may recognize this area. You're used to seeing pavement. It's not there anymore.
Okay. Hey, Darren. Keep your feet dry.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, and thanks to Tim Birchie. We'll be right back with more of this special hour-long edition of News 11 at 6 right after this break.
You are watching KVLY News 11. There's more news coming from Fargo, Grand Forks, and the entire region.
Coming up next, we're going to go live to Wahpeton, Breckenridge. Stay with us.
Closed captioning of this newscast is sponsored by the North Dakota Association for the Disabled.
Here's something worth looking into. The caravan clearance at Muscatel Dodge Jeep Eagle. With over 50 models to choose from, Muscatel needs to make room for spring inventory. Big savings for you on new caravans and grand caravans. All-wheel drive models available too. You'll find all the features you want. Child safety seat, CD player or tape deck, bench seats or captain chairs, and lots more. Get that new caravan you want now at big savings during the caravan clearance at Muscatel downtown Moorhead, where your satisfaction is important, and it shows.
Hornbuckers, your 24-hour food and more store.
Through Tuesday, our own ground fresh, several times daily regular ground beef, 99 cents a pound in 3-pound packages, limit 6 pounds. Fresh white northern mushrooms in an 8-ounce package, 59 cents, and golden ripe Chiquita bananas, 29 cents a pound. Every day, Hornbachers offers double value coupons.
Hornbuckers, your 24-hour food and more store. Hornbuckers.
5 convenient locations in Fargo, Moorhead.
Seal out the rain and save money at Menards. Roof-tight roof cement, seal holes in roofs, chimneys, valleys, and more. Choose from liquid or trollable grade, just $2.22 a gallon. 25-year fiberglass shingles from IKO look like shakes, but install faster and easier than regular 3-tab shingles. Class A fire-rated, $10.66 a bundle. When it comes to saving you money, nobody tops Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
Get ready. It's the Pontiac Race to the Red Line. Take the lead in America's most popular compact, Pontiac Grand Am, with a value that takes driving excitement to the limit.
And now, you can lease a new Grand Am GT Coupe for just $197 a month for 48 months.
But step on it. The race to the red line ends soon. Pontiac Grand Am. Built for kicks, built for keeps.
Sullen Motors, the driver's choice.
Robin Hubner joining you again in southwest Fargo in the Meadow Creek neighborhood. You know, the situation in Wahpeton Breckenridge today is certainly as tense as it's ever been. The river still going up there for a second crest, currently at 19.02, headed for a crest of about 19.5 sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours. Christy Stolhansky spent the day in Wahpeton Breckenridge, and she joins us now. Christy?
Well, Robin, actually here on the south side, which we showed you yesterday, things have kind of quieted down. Everyone who planned to leave their homes have left. The Coast Guard even pulled their boats out of the water, but they're still in town in case of an emergency. Now, the crisis situation in town is still going on. The water is still high and will be for several days. And the National Guard is still in town. They're patrolling for security reasons. Residents we talked to today say they can't believe what happened, but, you know, they're dealing with it the best they can. Bob Sheely and fellow Breckenridge resident Ron Forsheen are making their way home.
Oh, I got to get my boat, and then I got to get some stuff out of my house.
It's a tough task these days. The water's waist deep, higher than that in some places. By boat, you can see the damage. Hundreds of homes destroyed, cars underwater.
Can't do nothing else, you know, about it. Just got to hang in there and go day by day.
Hang tough.
While residents on the south side assess the damage, volunteers across the tracks work frantically to hold the water back.
We did this a couple weeks ago about a block over there, and we thought we were done, but it's coming back.
Many of the city's dikes are saturated and slipping.
And in one hole, which is right over here by the bridge, we stuck 4 semi-loads of sandbags in there.
I always wanted to live on a lake, but not like this.
Some residents are luckier than others. The Schneider family is relaxing after days of pumping and sandbagging. Their home is still dry.
Well, I finally got a little bit of extra sleep because it only took one of us to man the pumps, and 2 of us got a chance to get some shut-eye.
For others, dealing with the water has become a way of life and will continue until the last bit of cleanup is over.
It's unbelievable to many people. It's hopefully nobody ever sees it again.
And there's about 400 homes underwater, several businesses also. As you can imagine, damage estimates are skyrocketing. Joining me now is Breckenridge Mayor Cal Michaels. Cal, what can you tell me about damages?
Well, we're estimating, this is very preliminary, but we're estimating on the south side, it's probably approaching that $100 million figure.
Well, that sounds like a lot of money, but it's adding up.
It adds up in a hurry when you look at the number of homes that are involved and the businesses that are involved and the types of businesses, car dealerships, fertilizer, et cetera. That damage estimate can get up in a hurry.
Okay, now is the city worried? Are there any other situations going on the north side that they're worried about?
Well, we're not worried, but we're certainly concerned, and we continue to shore dikes and work with the integrity of our structure up there on the north side to make sure that what happened on the south side doesn't happen on the north side.
I take it you're watching the situation very closely.
Very, very closely, yes. And we have crews available around the clock, and a tremendous amount of volunteers were in from all over the area today to help us in our effort today to monitor our dikes and to shore them up.
Okay, one more quick question. I know the water back here is still very high. How long do you think this is going to be around?
They tell us it's going to be here for anywhere, maybe up to a week even, so we have to be prepared to continue to monitor and respond.
Okay, thanks, Cal Michaels, the mayor of Breckenridge, joining us. That's it from here.
Okay, thank you, Christy, very much. Christy Solhansky from Wahpeton Breckenridge. We're back at Meadow Creek, and joining us now, Mayor Bruce Furness and Public Works Director Pat Zavril. And Mayor, we'll start with you. How are things here in Southwest Fargo? Have they stabilized at all?
Well, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say stable, but they're under control for the time being. There's still a lot of water south of us, and we're not sure how that's going to filter in here. So we want people to be on guard all during the night, keep watch of what's happening here. As you can tell, we're still doing some bulldozing over here. We're going to be doing some diking, trying to keep on top of this. So I wouldn't call it stable, but at least right now it's under control.
Okay. Pat, how surprised were you that the water came in this area?
Very. We started today thinking that we would top off the dikes at City Hall and start in Ridgewood. And then we got a call about mid-morning from the highway department that said that water was breaking across the interstate 29 south of town, and that we probably should take a look at it. Our crews did inspect it, and we had to immediately mobilize. And of course, the things we did was had the mayor get on the media and tell the folks that they better get home and check the elevations, which we've had elevations throughout. And then got the sandbagging going and the dirt work going. And once again, the neighbors and the citizens of Fargo-Moorhead came through. We got the sandbags going, and at this point, we're ahead of it. But we're going to be making sandbags all night again, and hopefully we'll see some end in sight.
Mayor, do you have enough volunteers out here?
Well, we can always use more volunteers, and I do want to thank the community for responding to this particular crisis out here. There were people all over the place, and we caused kind of a traffic jam here, but we just felt that we had to let people know that this was coming, and had to deal with that. So yeah, we still need volunteers. As Pat said, we're going to fill sandbags all night again. We'll probably be calling in some of the help from the colleges tomorrow as well.
Is there still a problem with sightseers? I've seen quite a few people up and down with their video cameras. I'm not sure if they live around here or if they're driving in.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure either, but sightseers in general are a problem. The rumors are going rampant again. We don't have any major problems right now that I'm aware of. We've heard the colleges are underwater. We've heard all kinds of things. And what we're trying to do is, if we know something, we're going to let the people know that. And that's what we've been trying to do.
Okay. Pat, with the river now at 38.89, possibly going to 39.5, do you have any idea how things are going to hold up at a 39.5 crest?
Well, before we started the whole dike building operation, we went into all of the neighborhoods and gave them scenarios as to where we would, how best we could protect the neighborhoods at the 100-year flood, the 200-year flood, or whatever. And as the water rises, we've got two issues. We've got more areas that we have to protect that could break out, and we've got those dikes that are becoming under stress because of all the water. And all we can do is keep sandbagging, filling sandbags, pumping, and raising the dikes.
Okay, this question for either of you guys. This obviously what happened today was a complete surprise. Is there any way to look ahead and look to what might be some other trouble spots here later tonight or maybe tomorrow?
Well, we rely a lot on the neighbors to let us know what's going on. We have had people up in the air looking around, trying to figure out where this water is going to go. And I don't know. We're going to give it everything we got to win this battle. And if we do lose it, we're going to lose it fighting.
Okay. Say, Pat, this water that's coming in from the wild rice is supposed to be going into the red. It's not. It's coming way west and north. Any idea how we're going to get this water back into the red at some point?
Well, the river watchers, the experienced river watchers have said that the velocity of the water in the red right now is as fast as they've ever seen it. So what that means is that it is flowing north. And hopefully, we've said this before, if it freezes tonight, that might slow the runoff down on the edges. That will not feed quite so much into the red. Hopefully that the water will get through. And if that happens, then we'll have a fighting chance. If we get the warm weather tomorrow again, I think we're going to be into crisis management all over.
I believe it is supposed to be a little bit warmer tomorrow and possibly windy too, and we don't need that at this point at all.
No, we sure don't.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Continue good luck. Okay, Charlie, that's the situation here in Southwest Fargo at Meadow Creek. We'll take it back to you, and we'll be here for any further updates.
Okay, Robin, we'll be coming back to you later for a little more coverage, including some talk from the Northern Valley as well. You'll be telling us more about that. Mel Stone made an aerial tour of the valley today. Here's some of what he saw. We're kind of seeing this together here. We're beginning down in the Breckenridge area. This is primarily the south side of Breckenridge. You can see the railroad tracks and then all the water that is over it there. South Breckenridge, water in the streets. We're going to be moving up the valley here. Now we're heading toward the Oxbow and Hickson area from the south. You can see water building in the fields as we head up that way. Buildings and homes surrounded by the river. Homes that aren't supposed to be. Okay, now we're into Fargo. We're running along the river here, heading toward the downtown area. And we should be coming past St. John's there. Okay, now we're up in Oakport Township. Looks more like a lake than a township. The only thing that betrays it is the fact that there's a river there, or trees along where the river is. You see a man with that boat? Look down on the lower right side. You're seeing right behind that tree. He was bringing in a boatload of sandbags to his house to try to keep his house going. Now we're moving up to the Cragness area, and of course all the way up Highway 75 to the north, big water problems. That's the elevator in Cragness, water across all of those roads. Highway 75, of course, is closed. We do have a problem on Interstate 94 as well at the Highway 75 interchange in Moorhead. Water is running over the road there. I'll tell you more about that later. Local traffic is advised to use alternate routes wherever possible. They're keeping it open as best they can. Tom, warmer tomorrow, huh?
Well, Robin was expressing the fear of warmer weather tomorrow, and that's going to be the case, warmer and windy. But the good news is we still are holding off on any significant precip for an indefinite future, and that's the good news. We'll tell you more after we take a look at some numbers you might want to try calling before you travel around the region.
Dodge Caravan is the most award-winning minivan in history. This year, it's a Consumer's Digest Best Buy, one of Automobile Magazine's All-Stars, a Smart Money Magazine Best Buy, and one of Car and Driver's 10 Best. It's hard to make the best-selling minivan in history much more appealing, but we keep trying. Dodge Caravan. See the friendly Dodge dealer near you.
Choose the car, choose the dealer. Choose a Ford Taurus SHO and you'll get $2,000 cash back. Or choose any other Taurus and get $1,000 cash back. Plus, huge factory-to-dealer incentives can save you even more. Choose Taurus GL, a roomy wagon, even the Taurus LX.
The weather is certainly the good news in this newscast here, as we're expecting temperatures, of course, to warm up. That might not be that good from a flood standpoint, but at least we're not getting any heavy rain in the near future, and that's the good news. Let's check out your question here. Most lightning goes from cloud to ground, ground to cloud, or house to house. Well, the answer coming up soon as we take a live shot at the moon. All right, right now, it is 35 degrees across town, the dew point 21, relative humidity 57%. The wind is out of the north at 8, and the barometer 30-32 and steady. Right now, Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, it's 36, dew point 24, 62%. The humidity, winds are out of the east at 9, and the barometer 30.31 and steady. The numbers today, 36 and 21 here, no precip. The airport, 34-24, no precip. And in Grand Forks, 38, double deuces and no precipitation. As I did at 5, I will show you again the latest manual observed river level is at 38.5, and of course that's right now, or very recently, and that's closing in on the all-time record of 39.1 back in 1897, and the forecasted crest of 39.5, if it does verify, would put us over the hump and set a, let's just say, most unwanted record across the area. Makes you kind of wonder, back in 1897, when they didn't have levees, how the situation must have looked back then. Wow, you can only imagine. You can see some showers here in Oklahoma, stretching up into lower Michigan and pushing up into the northeastern part of the country. Speaking of serious weather situations, there's going to be one developing here in the Ohio Valley as an upper-level low is about to form, and that's going to drift slowly north and eastward. And maybe you remember the first weekend of April where there was a very heavy snowstorm in parts of Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. There may be a replay of 1 to 1.5 feet of snow from the interior mid-Atlantic all the way up into southern New England if enough cold air moves into that system. If not, there's going to be a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of cold temperatures. I only say that if you have plans to travel out east because it's, of course, no concern to us. Big ridge of high pressure here, giving us plenty of sunshine. We can see a notorious patch of clouds approaching from the west, but you know what? A lot of the energy is going to, A, either be wrung out as it moves over the Rockies with very little moisture left over because there will be a high pressure area developing here by the weekend, or B, a lot of the moisture is going to move up to the north, and just north of the international border, there could be a few showers tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, and also into Friday. But we should end up high and dry, with the exception of maybe a couple of sprinkles here and there during the late night tomorrow night and also into Friday. There you can see the ridge of high pressure. It did not get as warm today as forecast. Lots of cold air near the surface. High pressure right on top does not allow for mixing in the atmosphere, so that cold air was trapped. But at least we had a lot of sunshine and the winds were light, and that, of course, is really good news for fighting the flood. You can see the winds right now, variable in direction, under 12 miles per hour, picking up out to the west. We will see a stronger south wind during the day tomorrow. Notice how much warmer it is out to the west, 60s and 70s. We don't really want that here, but it will be warming up more so.
Back out to Robin. Robin?
Charlie, I know a lot of people in Grand Forks are watching to see what happens in Fargo, and I'm certain that they're very nervous seeing what's been happening here, but they do have the benefit of additional time to prepare. The Red River there has reached a critical stage in Grand Forks. The National Weather Service is predicting the red will hit 49.5 feet tomorrow. The Sorley and Point bridges are now closed, leaving the Kennedy Bridge as the only crossing over the red. Officials from both sides of the river are pleading for sandbag volunteers. Officials say they may decide to evacuate as many as 870 homes in Grand Forks tomorrow.
We're dealing with about 5 general areas of town known as the Riverside Park area, downtown Grand Forks, Central Park, the Lincoln Drive area, Belmont Road, where it's currently diked with clay, and Elmwood Drive to the far south.
And if we feel there's any safety of the people involved, we will ask that they evacuate prior to having anything happen. So evacuation is not meant to get people excited or anything, but it's meant for their own security.
In East Grand Forks, Mayor Lynn Stouse says over 400 people have already been evacuated from their homes, and mayors from both towns are asking non-essential businesses to close in order to let employees fight the flood. Sandbag Central is now operating 24 hours a day. Sandbaggers are needed along the dikes. Now, a special meeting for Northside Grand Forks residents with flood or evacuation questions will be held at 7 o'clock tonight at the Civic Auditorium. A meeting for Southside residents will be held at the same location at 8:15 tonight. So at 7 o'clock is for the North Side residents, at 8:15 for the South Side residents. That's at the Civic Auditorium. Overland flooding from the ice-jammed Snake River has now sent water throughout Warren, Minnesota. Overnight, emergency officials were forced to tear down a clay dike on the east side of town. And Mike Carey has that story.
Overland flooding from the east side of town claimed more of Warren by the hour. Around 10 this morning, it had reached the railroad tracks that divide the town, and by 11:30, it was freely rolling into the west side. Places that had been dry yesterday were now underwater from a few inches to several feet, and that wasn't the only problem.
And now we got all this ice, and on the bottom there's ice, so it gets pretty slippery.
Despite how grim the scene looked, homeowners and business people were prepared. Many had taken precautions to keep the water out, having gone through similar flooding twice last spring.
The basement, it's about up to the ankles. We've got 2 pumps going. We haven't had to use our 2-inch gas pump yet.
We've had sandbags up since Monday morning, and we've had them piled in the warehouse for about a month now, so it was just a matter of putting them down and wait for the water.
But the battle to keep water out of homes on the east side of town was still in high gear, with some residents hacking through snowbanks to lay sandbags.
The water's pretty high around your house right now. Are you nervous?
A little bit. It's going to get worse, I think, though.
We got churches set up in the Red Crosses in town. And
do you know if many people have left their homes?
no, we haven't had any calls of evacuation to this point.
And emergency officials hope they won't, because as the flooding works its way west, the water will go down. Perhaps slowly, but it will go down. From Warren, Minnesota, Mike Carey, KVLY News 11.
Meantime, a rise of nearly 3 feet in the Red Lake River at Crookston caused some very tense moments. The river hit a new record of 27.5 feet. Dikes protect the city to 29 feet. Connie Holmer of Grand Forks was on her way to work in Crookston at 5:30 this morning when she nearly drowned. Holmer went around a barricade and ended up submerged in water.
She was screaming for help, so we called 911, and a few of us ran up on the bridge and we're talking to her, telling her to swim to the railing, trying to calm her down and, you know, keep her going and stuff. And the cop went on the other side and pulled her out. And
Officer Rusty Miller pulled Holmer from the water. Both were released from Riverview Hospital after they warmed up a bit. The city council has called for a general evacuation of low-lying areas in Crookston, and that includes about 1/3 of the city. Residents are asked to voluntarily leave their homes, and those in need of shelter should go to the new high school. So that's it from the Northern Valley. Here in the southwest part of Fargo, Charlie, it's real hard to tell if things have stabilized. I haven't been here long enough to see if the water has actually gone up, but things have certainly not slowed down here. We've got another truck coming in to dump another load of dirt. It looks like they're going to try to build this dike up right here along 25th Street up a little bit, so nobody's letting their guard down by any means here. If I could just say, the traffic here is horrendous. I don't know if you can see behind me with all of the cars and the sand trucks. If you don't have a reason to be out here, please do not come out here. It's got to be very frustrating for the homeowners. And stay at home, watch it on television if you're curious, and please stay away from these areas. There's just too much important work going on.
Exactly, and you're also going to get frustrated if you go because there are traffic jams developing.
All over.
Okay, thanks, Robin. We'll check back with you at the end here.
All right.
We'll be back with some flood announcements next.
Actor-producer Cindy Williams before Jenny Craig.
I'm going to go on the Jenny Craig program and lose all this weight. I know I'm in here somewhere. Just one of me, the one that I want to be again. I've done it. I've lost 25 pounds on Jenny Craig, and I'm just thrilled with myself. I've gone down 5 dress sizes. I just can't believe it.
Spring tune-up special. Lose all you want for just $21.
And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Dateline Friday, these people trusted the powerful company they worked for. Did work make them sick? And could it have been prevented? Katie Couric with a frightening report about computers, chemicals, and a pending courtroom battle. I'm Stone Phillips. Join me for Dateline Friday.
Introducing the new Jeep Cherokee. While it still has one of the most powerful engines in its class, the all-new interior will impress you. And while its off-road capability is legendary, you'll find a quieter ride. Now, with over 40 advancements, will you still recognize it? We think so. Now lease the new Jeep Cherokee for $239 a month. Check one out at your Jeep and Eagle dealer.
Here are some flood-related announcements. Bear in mind, there are a lot of them that come in during the day. We had some at 5 that we're not repeating. Some of them we are, the ones that we think you would need to see, especially. Check if there's something going on that you think might be canceled. Okay, first of all, a little road work here. The water is running, not ruining, but running over I-94 under the Highway 75 overpass. The area is still open. Crews are trying to slow the flow, but local traffic is advised to use other routes. That, of course, is back up from the Red River. Local governments in the area are asking us to, all of us, to limit our cell phone use and keep calls short. Emergency workers are having trouble getting cell lines when they need them. Sandbaggers desperately needed in Georgetown. They need sandbags and sand as well. No classes for grades 9 through 12 at Oak Grove for the rest of the week. No school at Warren, Alvarado, Oslo on Thursday. NDSU is closed today. Concordia and Northwest Technical College, that's both Moorhead and East Grand Forks, incidentally, for Northwest Tech, are canceling tomorrow's classes. Moorhead State will be closed Friday. MSU and NDSU will be open tomorrow, but students and staff are asked to dress down and be on standby for duty. Friday, NDSU and Concordia will be open, but again, students and staff are asked to dress down. UND is open, but classes are canceled for today and tomorrow. The post office and community building in Georgetown were evacuated today. Anyone wishing to evacuate Georgetown should do so during daylight hours. Call the Clay County emergency number. That's 299-5255 for help. Also, there's a reminder to you folks and beyond. Highway 75 to the south of Georgetown is closed. So many roads are closed and washed out that we can't even begin to tell you, especially the county roads. Be very careful going around, especially at night. Don't go at night. Villa Maria Adult Daycare is canceled until April 21st. Now, these church activities are canceled. All evening activities at Nativity. Hope Lutheran South Campus, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade activities tonight canceled. St. Joseph's Catholic in Moorhead, all religious education and youth activities. United Lutheran in Grand Forks is canceling Cathedral Choir for tonight. St. Mary's Cathedral in Fargo is having a daily prayer service for people of all faiths. It'll run daily from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. starting tomorrow until the flood crisis is over. The Friday, April 18th Johnny Lang concert at NDSU will go on. The interesting part of that is $5 from any of the remaining ticket sales will be donated to the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund. And they need help here in Fargo and Moorhead and points around. You can call the Volunteer Center at 232-9200. They always know where help is needed and can direct you where you can do the most good. We'll be right back.
Building sandcastles is a real art form.
You say you can't do it, we don't believe you. We teach you.
We build sandcastles because of the fantasy element.
That's a South Texas snowball. We decided about 2 years ago to put our creations on the internet.
When I started our website, it didn't have a whole lot to it. But after a couple of upgrades, some peripherals, and a bunch of software, it turned into what you see now.
For all your computer needs, get to Best Buy, the #1 seller of home computers.
When you need sand, you go to the beach.
When you need computers, you go to Best Buy.
The energy to serve you. We've got the power to bring it home to you. The energy to serve you. We'll turn it on and make this pledge to you. The energy to shape the future and make the darkness bright. The energy to serve you. Our retail power. We're bringing it home. Bring it home. The energy to serve you.
We just sent our first Saturns to Japan.
And as we celebrate our partnership with our friends in the East, we're offering what we call the 24,000 yen lease. Easily one of the most competitive around. And as you can see, 24,000 yen isn't all that much. And in fact, it's a pretty swell offer. So stop by your local retailer. Give them a hug. Tell them you're happy we're going to Japan and check out the lease. It's easy. Just make sure they put the steering wheel on the right side. I mean, left side. You know what I mean, right?
The governor's inaugural ball, postponed earlier this year because of a blizzard, was canceled today because of the flooding. People who were planning on attending that event are being asked instead to donate the money to agencies providing flood relief.
People around North Dakota are facing some very trying situations right now. And under these circumstances, both Nancy and I feel strongly that we must focus our attention on helping our friends and neighbors recover from these losses caused by a long, severe winter and record-level flooding. Quite simply, this is not the right time for a gala ball. Instead, we are asking citizens who are planning to attend this celebration, who were planning on attending this celebration, to consider making a donation to provide relief to the countless farmers, ranchers, business owners, and other victims of these harmful disasters.
The $34,000 raised by the Citizens Inaugural Committee to fund the event will be returned to the donors or given to flood relief agencies at their direction. We'll be back to wrap up this special edition of News 11 at 6 right after this.
Lumberland Clearance Centers announced Factory Direct Mattress Savings. We purchased the entire production from the United States Bedding Company. We bought every twin, full, queen, and king-size mattress and foundation right off their line. Factory Direct means you're going to save even more. Twin sets start at just $66. Queen sets from $138, and king sets from just $198. Incredible. Right now, get Factory Direct savings at the Slumberland Clearance Center inside our store on East Highway 10 in Moorhead and on 32nd Avenue South in Grand Forks.
What's the matter? Couldn't you sleep?
Did you think I wouldn't find out?
Is this about the ring I gave you? Listen, a cubic zirconia looks just like a real diamond. Is this about my time in prison?
You drank the last of the milk.
Got milk?
During Jenny Craig's Spring Tune-Up Special, lose all the weight you want for $21 plus the cost of food. In Grand Forks, call 746-9608. Why wait another day? During Jenny Craig's Spring Tune-Up Special, lose all the weight you want for $21 plus the cost of food. In Grand Forks, call 746-9608. Why wait another day?
Connect the dots for savings on used cars and trucks at Sellin Motors Dot Lot, where the price of every used vehicle is easy to spot by the color-coded dot. Now, get new car quality without new car price on a big selection of 1995 and 96 Pontiac and Oldsmobile program cars. Plus, always on hand, many clean, late-model luxury automobiles, along with 4x4 pickups and Suburbans at Sellin Motors Dot Lot, where a dot means a lot.
Here at 25th Street South and Meadow Creek Drive, this dike is being shored up. As you can see, the water is rising, getting close to the top. If people could stay away from this area, these trucks have a lot of work to do here in what may be a relatively short period of time to get this dike back up a little bit. So if people could stay out of the area, that would be great.
Okay.
These guys got a lot of work to do.
Okay, thank you, Robin.
You bet.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. We'll be back with more Flood Watch on News 11 at 10.
Make it a Chevy.
Now you can make it a rugged Chevy S10 pickup for just $150.
This is what's left of Seaver's neighborhood. We're off. And Forks, but that submerged Hyundai shows trouble.
Tomorrow on a Monday where they would normally be ready to go to work, to put the kids off to school, to attend class, to cook a meal, to wash the clothes. None of that's going to happen. Not for a long time here. They need your help. And if you will call the Red Cross hotline at 612-330...
North Dakota. More than 70% of the city is underwater. And on Monday, the Red River is expected to crest at 54 feet, 26 feet above flood stage. Frank Currier is there.
Here's what's left of downtown Grand Forks this evening. A fire that broke out yesterday and swept through 11 buildings in a 4-block area is now contained. This afternoon, firefighters struggled with it the only way they could, from the air.
We can't fight this one. Everything is gone. It's just gone.
National Guard troops today went door to door, rescuing what few townspeople were still trapped in their homes by high waters.
For those who've been fighting the Red River since dikes gave way Friday night, the worst still may not be over.
There is always a potential for a larger portion of the city to be flooded. The river is still rising.
With 3,000 evacuees seeking shelter at the nearby Air Force Base, many worshipped at a chapel fashioned from a racquetball court. Officials are urging any other residents who've considered riding out this flood to leave.
Walk away from those homes, walk away from those buildings. We will rebuild, and we will be stronger, and we will be in it together.
The surging Red River here is approaching 54 feet, an unheard of 26 feet above flood stage, an historic record high not even approached in this part of the country.
You have to see this to believe it. It is beyond anything any of us have experienced, the most devastating disaster.
The 2,000 people are forced to call home a hangar at the Grand Forks Air Force Base. No one knows how long they'll be here.
But this is really catastrophic.
We didn't have time to take anything with us.
The water comes up too fast.
These women lost their homes and everything they own, but they remain upbeat, focused on what's most important.
And now those are the only clothes that they can wear. They had to leave literally without anything more than the clothes on their back.
Some of their news, KSTP in St. Paul, Minneapolis. Your old country, Asha.
That's right. You're watching World News Now.
3 or 4 stories tall. They got to knock those over in order to reduce the risk to the firefighters and rescue crews that are in that area. So that will be taking place today. As you mentioned, the 3 house fires they had overnight, one not too far from our station, that they were able to get out fairly quickly. And we did get the addresses, that's right, the 1510 18th Avenue South, 1910 18th Avenue South, and the one over 1111 Walnut. They all were contained, especially I know the one in 18th Avenue South was, we saw the truck go by and shortly after we heard it was out, so they, although the amount of the damage is unclear at this point, obviously when the water goes down we'll see that. Somewhat of an indication also, I think Lynn Staus, just trying to pick out some of the new information. Earlier he had said he thought it might be a week before he would let people come back into the community, and now he seemed to be fairly strong that it would be at least 2 weeks before anybody would be allowed back in.
And I think one of the things when he did some information with us is they had for quite...
There are a lot of people who are still using those sandbags. The fight has not been given up, and they are still sandbagging, as you say, around the East Grand Forks Water Treatment Plant to try and save that.
You know, there's so many of these organizations as we as...
are flying along, apparently diking up on the South Washington, but north of our building. We're on the right next to 24th Avenue South. We can't see from the roof. I've been up there before. You can't really tell what they're doing up there, but the trucks have been going constantly, and the FEMA just says that there is some diking going on South Washington to keep water from moving west. So obviously there's still some problems with water moving in our area.
You were telling us last time, these stories coming together, are some of the things that the opportunity that they'll be seen now at 6 o'clock during the news.
Right, at 6 o'clock during the news, and we've had some confirmation that Terry Doolin, I just talked to him, he and a cameraman, I think Brian McKenty, were in Drayton this afternoon, and they are having evacuations in that community now. So some of these shelters now that are set up to help Grand Forks residents will probably begin taking on some residents from northern communities as well. And Los Gallegos has a story about families living in homes that opened up, people that opened up their homes and now have 1 or 2 new families living with them, possibly for the next 2 weeks. And hopefully this afternoon we do have what's called pool of footage that's being taken. A camera person from one organization goes out, I believe they have 1 pool camera in a helicopter and 1 in a boat that has been, the boat has been out and should be back. We don't know exactly when we'll finally see that video, but hopefully that will be one of the things we hear from a lot of people who call, and if they're leaving another message, they also say, hey, if you can show my house over on South Washington. Well, the aerial view, I doubt you'll be able to tell exactly what house you're in, but hopefully that'll give you some sense of what's going on in your neighborhood. And certainly the helicopter or the boat will move through certain neighborhoods and we'll get an idea of what it looks like.
We'll be frustrated that we didn't go a little further south on the camera. I mentioned this morning that...
Also today, gas was disconnected to the downtown area. Electricity has been shut off everywhere except the southwest part of the city and for emergency services only. Now, I know a lot of this is just too much to even fathom, but let me give you a map to show you what it is we're talking about and how much of the city is affected. We are told now that 75% of Grand Forks is underwater. Think of it this way now. The city is about 10.5 miles wide. There is about 7.5 miles plus of the city is now underwater. As you can see from the map, it is just amazing how much water is now in the city, and for good reason why they evacuated as many as they did. The latest we have on the evacuations, 90% of the people who live in Grand Forks were told to leave their homes. On the other side of the river, or what normally should be the other side of the river, in East Grand Forks, 98. That's right, 98% of the people were told to leave their homes. It was Monday morning. Most people would think, well, if they have a home and they woke up, what do? Do they go to work? Do their kids go to school? Coping is a hard part of all of this. Covering that side of the story, Don Shelby. Don?
Well, you know, the entire place takes on the appearance of some sort of refugee camp because, in essence, that is exactly what it is. The homeless and displaced all looking for some sort of safe haven. And, in fact, many of them have found it at the Air Force Base at Grand Forks, North Dakota. In fact, hundreds more refugees were arriving today. They were going to that big hangar at the base. It will be their new home for who knows how long. Inside, cots are lined up wall to wall, no privacy there. Everyone here has little to hide, much to share. They're all in the same boat. Some of them are not coping well at all. On the other hand, there are some people who have been forcibly removed from their homes, people who fought to hold on to anything like normalcy. Others, like Joanne Cooksey, are even coping and being grateful about it.
There are people here that their houses are literally gone. Mine has some water in it, I know. But my son's alive, I'm alive, my husband's alive, and that's what's important.
That's how you're coping.
That's how I'm coping with it.
One of the things that makes people cope so well here is the helping hand that people have been able to afford others. Everyone is pitching in. Caroline will come up here in just a few moments to tell you about how people are even putting aside some of their own pain and anguish to reach out to help others. That's an amazing story as well, Jonathan. I also talked to Representative Colin Peterson today, who represents the district on the East Grand Forks side, and he said that there was some disappointment from the East Grand Forks people that so little attention was being paid to their part of town. They all understood that it was very difficult to get over there, but their story is being told today, Jonathan.
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, Don, while we're talking about East Grand Forks, it was one of the harder hit areas, if you can even believe that. And today, that's where Governor Carlson was. He was in Crookston at one of the shelters, one of the many shelters that has been set up. He was touring the shelter, talking to folks, finding out how it is they're doing and asking them what the biggest problems they're facing now are. Obviously, being out of their home is first and foremost, but there are still others, like getting prescription medicines and things that they had to leave behind. We're going to have more on the governor's visit to East Grand Forks. But first, this morning, we knew that East Grand Forks was in trouble. We just had no way to get there. We're on the North Dakota side, and all the bridges across have been covered, as you might imagine, by the red that has risen to levels that are incredible. So this morning, Garvin Snell, reporter for WCCO4 News, woke up early, got in our live eye, and flew across. He joins us now with that side of the story. Garvin?
Well, Jonathan, you mentioned before the 98% number, the people evacuated. To put it in different numbers, there were 5,000 people in town there. There are only 250 people still living in their homes, and in fact, the authorities would wish those people would get out as well. As you said, it was difficult to get over, but we did manage to get over. We were able to tour this afternoon by boat areas of East Grand Forks. Now, at first, when we look at this, we see the downtown. We've seen pictures like this in Grand Forks on the North Dakota side. It is only when we get into the neighborhoods that we're truly shocked by what we see. We have houses which have been knocked off their foundations. There is so much water, they're literally floating in the Red River. There are also pieces of heavy equipment that they did not have time to get out when the floodwaters came that are still sitting in town. And we also found some people who had put some deck chairs and things up on top of a deck to keep them dry. Those are dry. It's just now that the deck has floated away. Now, of course, there is going to be a lot of cleanup needed here. It is just a staggering amount. Colin Peterson, as Don said, was in the area. He toured. Governor Arnie Carlson was in the area. He toured as well. They are talking about relief efforts down that could total in the billions of dollars.
Oh, it's just amazing to even think about that. Garvin, can you tell us, when you first flew over, what was the impression you had when you started? Because over here we were seeing rooftops. Over there, you actually saw sides of homes just flowing downriver. I just was curious what your first impression of that was.
Well, it is amazing because I saw those rooftops, and it's only when you get down in person in front of it, and then you're dealing in a human scale as you normally confront houses. That's when it's remarkable, and you can also get the idea of how the houses are tilted, how the garages have slammed into one another. Another strange experience is as we're going on at around 10 feet of water, you realize that there are cars underneath your boat completely submerged.
All right, Garvin, thanks very much for that. And certainly one of the most unexpected aspects of this entire tragedy was the fire that broke out at about 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon in the downtown district. It was actually the historic section of town where the fire broke out. When all was said and done, it took 24 hours for the firefighters to get to it. It took a few hours just for them to figure out how to get their pumper trucks down there to fight that fire. Well, they finally did figure out how to fight that fire, and we are happy to say that this morning the fire chief in a press conference said that he is satisfied that that fire is out and no other structures in the downtown area are now being threatened. But now, let me give you something to think about. A lot of the firefighters, and many of them couldn't show up to work because they were out of their homes, they had nothing. But those that did show up were pulling 24 and 48-hour shifts because they had been sandbagging and working to try and save this town. As you remember, on Friday it was a sandbagging effort. By Saturday and Sunday it was a lost effort. But a lot of those firefighters that did show up for that, these people now, when they come away from the fire, they're now going back to try and help their fellow neighbors. And that's what it's all about up here, but some of them are now at that stretching point. They are so fatigued. Caroline Lowe caught up with a lot of the rescue efforts, the firefighters. She has that side of the story for us. Caroline?
Jonathan, we just returned from the fire station downtown, and we talked with a number of firefighters. Just about everybody who works there has lost part of their homes. They had to leave their homes as well on Saturday. In fact, in many cases, they had to leave their homes, say goodbye to their families. One firefighter I interviewed this afternoon, his family's in Montana. He says he kissed his wife and children goodbye. That evening, he spent the evening trying to fight that fire downtown. It's been an incredible toll. They're working 18-hour days. We also talked with sheriff deputies who have been working round the clock, one who keeps checking every hour on the tower in town. If that goes down, they lose all communication, so there's tremendous stress on them. A little while ago, I caught up with a man working on they're trying to build a new dike downtown, right down South Washington Street, where we were doing our live shots earlier in the week. He's working. He's had the same clothes on since Saturday. We have a couple of interviews with some of the firefighters we just caught up with. Here they are.
Oh, yeah, I've talked to them a few times, but I think they're doing all right.
What's the hardest part? Just keep them going or sing the lost?
I've never seen anything like this before. I lived in Rapid City when I was a kid during the Rapid City flood, and this is a little different because it's not a flash situation, but it's still devastating. We're really lucky we haven't lost any lives. So.
What's been the hardest part during all this for you? Worrying about your family, your home?
Yeah, family, my home, and it's frustrating. There's people in some of these houses yet, and they don't want to come out.
Did you get a chance to check on your house today? You're going to do
Nope.
that out there?
No, didn't get a chance yet.
That firefighter mentioned a lot of the people that go that don't want to come out. It's so frustrating because they're putting their lives on the line. They're not with their families, and they have people who want to stick it out in town, so that's difficult. One request from the fire department, they said they can really use cell phones. So if there's anybody in the Twin Cities in our viewing area that wants to contribute, find a way to get in touch with the Red Cross or the Emergency Communication Center up here, they can really use those cell phones. They're forced to go out on boats to rescue people. They take their fire rigs out on flatbed trucks. They're working under tremendous conditions. They can use your help.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some way that somebody can help in that respect. All right, Caroline, thanks very much for that. Another thing that happened is if you do take a boat and you're touring this area, it is a ghost town. It is almost eerie how much of a ghost town it is. Things are left out, cars are parked in the driveways, everything looks normal except you have 3 feet of water all over the area. And because of the water last night as it was creeping up to dangerous levels, one of the buildings in the path of the rising water, the hospital. So they had to make a hasty retreat. They had 250 people that had to be evacuated. 16 of those were critical care patients that had to be airlifted late last night. They were taken to the Twin Cities, and the problem is it happened so fast, and remember, these patients are in critical condition. They didn't have time or didn't have anybody they could call loved ones to tell them what was happening. Mike Walsher joins us now live from Abbott Northwestern, where one of those stories is playing out. Mike?
Well, John, some victims of this flood not only are suffering their own serious medical problems, but of not has happened to their relatives and their friends. Imagine you're in the hospital, the town's flooding, the heart patient Lloyd Jacobson cries out for his wife. Monday morning, he didn't know where she was. He couldn't locate her at a shelter Sunday night before he was airlifted here.
For all my relations and everything,
I'm in Minneapolis, in the hospital in Minneapolis.
The 934th Airlift Wing of the Air Force Reserve flew Jacobson and more than a dozen others to the Twin Cities. Ambulance crews dispersed the patients to several local hospitals and a Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Fairview Southdale received 4 patients, including Steve Kraft, who aggravated his herniated disc while filling sandbags a couple of weeks ago. He says during the last few days, the hospital up there had no running water.
They were really under siege at United in Grand Forks, and my hat goes off to the staff there. I mean, they worked under the most horrible conditions.
Kraft is a professor of social work at the University of North Dakota. He moved to Grand Forks from New York just a year ago. He has no idea what's happened to his home or belongings. He's just happy he survived the airlift.
It was very, very uncomfortable. It was difficult. But again, it was a tremendous job that the Air Force personnel did.
A couple of updates. Steve Kraft will get back surgery in the Twin Cities. He hopes to go back to Grand Forks and resume his teaching this summer. The folks here at Abbott finally have located Lloyd Jacobson's wife, Dorothy. She is in a shelter in the Grand Forks area. She's okay. She has been assured that he's down here. He's been assured that she's up there and okay. So good news on that front, John.
That is good news. Mike, thanks very much for that. We appreciate that. You know, the human suffering, when you think about it, especially as widespread as it is just, it's almost too much to even comprehend. And really, the sad part in all reality with all of this is it's probably just begun. We're going to go back to Amelia now in Minneapolis. We'll come back up to Grand Forks in just a few minutes. Amelia?
Jonathan, did you get a chance to talk to any of the people out there? I know they were very positive in the beginning. How are they now?
Well, we're going to get to that a little later in the newscast when we come back. I got a chance to go out to the Air Force Base, is one of the largest evacuation centers, and when you meet those people, it's, well, Friday again and Saturday, they were very pumped up. They were excited. They thought they had a chance, and they were working on adrenaline, and now it's almost like the adrenaline has worn off, and they're in shock, and then when shock wears off, they're going to be back in reality, and it's going to be very difficult to really take in.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jonathan. We'll see you a little later on. And you can help relieve some of the suffering. WCCO continues to team up with the Red Cross to make it easy for you to help flood victims. Just call our phone bank at 330-2764. Red Cross volunteers will be here until 11 o'clock tonight. And yesterday, you were so generous, we raised $115,000. And we're going to repeat that number in just a few minutes. Some students in Lakeville are the latest with the hometown effort to help the flood victims. They asked for dimes, but as you can see, they got much, much more for the flood disaster. All this week, Christina Elementary students in Lakeville will collect dimes and other donations, all which will be contributed to the American Red Cross flood relief effort. Right now, it's about 15 minutes after 5, still ahead on WCCO 4 News. We'll show you how people stuck in emergency shelters are getting word to their loved ones.
Powerful river water. Life as anyone would know it in a city has stopped here.
It's hard to see a community that once had streets where traffic flowed and kids played and people worked in their yards, and you're seeing nothing. There's nobody here. It's almost like, will they ever come back?
All weekend they ran from the river, stunned. The river rose to its record level, and then it kept going. Voluntary evacuations quickly became mandatory and then frantic, one neighborhood after the next. Then the hospital, everyone out.
You're gonna have a nice low ride there, Billy.
The danger in staying became clear when flames suddenly rose from the downtown sky Saturday night. One small fire, unreachable in this flood, became an inferno. Firefighters and volunteers tried to push their way in through the current, swift, with undertows and sudden rapids, treacherous. In this, there was little they could do. The buildings still smolder today. The danger of fire here remains, and the water is ruining most everything it touches.
It will be weeks before all the water is gone here, and months before it can be cleaned up enough for everyone to move back in.
I don't think there's really any words to describe it. It's just total devastation.
Craig Grabansky is a sheriff's deputy. Like so many rescue workers here, he too has a home submerged, a family trying to figure out what their life is going to be. This is his city, and he does not recognize it.
It doesn't seem real. It's not real. You feel like you're going to wake up and find that it's a bad dream.
What strikes you when you travel through here is that there are no voices. No sounds of life in a city. Just an odd and very sad silence. Erin Hayes, ABC News, Grand Forks, North Dakota.
So where do all the people go? When you nearly empty a city of 50,000 people, where do you find shelter for them? All at once. ABC's Ron Claiborne tonight on the massive relocation.
At station WDAZ in Grand Forks, the newsroom is turned into a clearinghouse for emergency housing.
Lawrence Sandlow from Winnipeg has some rooms for a family. He says pets are okay.
Thousands of people have ended up in the homes of callers who besieged the station with offers of spare beds, rooms, garages, even barns.
Dan Jananik is in Red Lake Falls. They can accommodate up to 8 people.
They've been calling from everywhere from Winnipeg to Wisconsin to Duluth to Montana, you name it.
78-year-old Lillian Sarazin and 10 other Grand Forks refugees found shelter with the Robinson family.
I had never met either one of them, and they were just as if I'd have been an old friend that had always been here, so I felt at home.
Whole communities have literally opened their doors to the victims of the flood. The town of Thompson, North Dakota, about 11 miles south of Grand Forks, has taken in about 1,000 evacuees, as many people as live here.
We've got a lot of people that were strangers, that the people didn't know them, hadn't never met them before, but, you know, they're in the homes.
Thousands of other people are living in various emergency shelters. The largest, the Air Force Base just west of town. There are 3,000 people there, and more arriving by the hour. Others who left their homes have gone to motels or to stay with relatives near and far, scattered by the Great Flood of 1997. Ron Claiborne, ABC News, Thompson, North Dakota.
In reading and talking about some of the history of the Red River Valley, we found that the pioneers talked of great floods in the 1820s and again in 1852. Impossible to compare, really, because accurate records weren't kept until the late 1890s. But this morning we did ask ABC's Bill Blakemore to look at what had happened this year, which resulted in so much devastation.
This was caused by a rare combination of factors. First, the Red River, which starts at Lake Traverse and flows north toward Canada, is very shallow. It overflows quickly, and when it does, there's a wide, flat floodplain, 30 to 50 miles on either side, for the water to spread out in. Second, the entire Red River Valley has almost no slope, so it never empties quickly. The water collects. Then the weather. In November, heavy rains filled up the spongy ground. In December, a sudden freeze locked it in. Snow fell this winter deeper than ever recorded, and not just any snow. It was dense, with the highest water content per cubic foot of snow ever recorded there. Worse, this record depth and wetness of snow fell over 25,000 square miles that covered all tributaries feeding into the Red River. In early April, record cold kept things frozen. So April 8th, when the thaw began, all at once,
the ground is frozen, it's filled up with water, it cannot take in any more water. The water has no recourse but to run off into the lowest lying areas.
Some good news? They have not had their usual April thunderstorms. Yet. Bill Blakemore, ABC News.
One other note from North Dakota. We were inspired by the headline in today's Grand Forks Herald. Come hell and high water, it said. Well, they've had a hell of a weekend at the paper. First the flood and then the fire you saw in our first report, which gutted the building. They lost their clipping and photograph files and much of their microfilm, going all the way back to the first edition in 1879. But they were on the job again today. They worked on an elementary school's computers and they printed the paper in St. Paul, Minnesota, 300 miles away. It was important, said the paper today. At a time like this, people are starved for news. When we come back, some of the day's other news elsewhere in...
Just are no words to describe it, are there? Editor Chris Michaels put that piece together for us, and tonight at 10, we'll go behind the lens with our own photographers.
This is KVLY News 11 with Charlie Johnson, Robin Hubner.
A flyover today by the U.S. Coast Guard shows just how the Red River has devastated Grand Forks and East Grand Forks.
The approach from the south shows flooded residential neighborhoods as far as the eye can see. It takes us over the police department in the lower center of the building and the courthouse into downtown Grand Forks. Then, as we move forward, it shows the damage caused by the weekend fire. First 4 and 5 damaged buildings come into view. Then a block away, 6 more buildings destroyed, including the security building where the fire started. And across the Red River, the river engulfs East Grand Forks as well. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us in tonight. President Clinton will make a hastily arranged visit to flood-ravaged Grand Forks and East Grand Forks tomorrow.
The president will land at the Grand Forks Air Force Base before noon, visit some of the people housed at the shelter there, and take an aerial tour of the two cities. Much of Grand Forks' 50,000 residents and the entire town of East Grand Forks, about 9,000 people, have been evacuated. Deep contaminated water means it'll be a long time before homeowners can return. Paul Fredericks and photographer Bruce Sundin show us the damage in East Grand Forks.
Bells from Sacred Heart Catholic Church rang out, a symbol of hope, but few were around to hear them. The message to East Grand Forks residents was simple: don't come back for now.
Because there's nothing to come back to right now. We have to basically rebuild our community.
It may be anywhere from a week to a month before Eastside residents can return, many only to find their homes in ruin. At its worst, the water's more than 15 feet deep, submerging houses north of downtown, forcing others off their foundations. The top of a downtown strip mall barely peeking out. And National Guard troops not surrendering yet, trying to sandbag the police building. No dollar amount on damage, but Minnesota Congressman Colin Peterson is sure it'll be in the billions.
We need to do something more than just what FEMA has available under this disaster declaration. We've gotten the entire declaration, which includes grant money and low-interest loans, but in my judgment, that is not adequate to address this situation.
Everything is closed down. There's nothing there.
Minnesota Governor Arnie Carlson made a 15-minute appearance at Crookston High School, the evacuation center for East Grand Forks flood victims. Many had only moments to leave their homes.
I looked out the window about 4:15 and just started rolling up the street, so. No time? No time.
Here's another adult. We only had about 10 minutes.
Inside, organized chaos. People picked up basic necessities, applied for disaster and unemployment assistance, and left information where they're staying.
If somebody calls in and they're trying to find somebody, then we look it up, and hopefully we know where they are.
Jim and Vicki Mitzel feel fortunate because they have relatives to stay with in Crookston.
It's going to be long because they're saying it's weeks before they'll let us back in.
Yeah, that's the hard part, going back to find out what's lost.
We don't know how much water we have.
Stick together, we're gonna make it through this, we're gonna rebuild this town, and it'll be better than ever.
In East Grand Forks, with photographer Bruce Sundin, Paul Fredericks, KVOY News 11.
Evacuated East Side residents should call the East Grand Forks Evacuation Center to register. That number is 218-281-3220. People looking for information regarding evacuated family or friends.
Over the Grand Forks Water Treatment Plant, right over the area where the Red and the Red Lake River meet, the Central Park region. Believe it or not, there is a whole neighborhood of houses down there.
And now we'll give you a closer look at the destruction on the ground. Because much of the area is flooded, it takes a boat to get around town, and that's what reporter Austin Schauer and photographer Eric Spear did today in East Grand Forks.
It is devastation beyond belief. Street after street, house after house, business after business, Grand Forks and East Grand Forks swallowed up by a 54-foot river. People here prepared for a crest of 49 to 50. Never did anyone expect an additional wall of 4 feet to blindside them. Dikes, both clay and sandbag, never had a chance. There is no sewer, There is no clean water, there is no electricity. These are watery ghost towns that will need to be rebuilt one brick at a time over many, many months. The flood plays no favorites. From mobile homes to apartments to houses valued at $250,000, all virtually destroyed. Leaders from both communities tried to look forward.
Water world, you know, it's just water everywhere. It's in both Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, our community is just about completely covered with water, whether it be 2 feet, whether it be up to 12 or 15 feet. There's no more sandbagging now, there's no more diking. We did our work, we tried our best, Mother Nature beat us. It's moved forward, let's do what we can to restore the community.
With help from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, we toured the flooded streets of East Grand Forks. Debris, stench, and crushed homes and businesses could be seen and smelled everywhere. The water is filled with garbage, raw sewer, and fuel oil. The smell is horrific. The last stand in East Grand Forks is the town's police station. It's the command center for this emergency and one of the last buildings in town not to be flooded. Nearly every business in town is flooded. The tops of buildings are all you can see. During this boat tour, we did not see one house that wasn't flooded. Some of the homes have been knocked off their foundations. The worst hit area in East Grand Forks was the central part of the community north of downtown. Here, homes are buried in 12 to 15 feet of water. Many residents want to come back to their homes and see the devastation, but no one has been allowed in. The conditions with the river current are dangerous. The unclean water borders a pollution disaster.
Please don't ask me, because when you do, it hurts, and it hurts the people that are saying no to you. We have to do that as soon as we possibly can. We will open the community and bring you back in.
Congressman Peterson says without federal help, these communities will not be able to rebuild to where they once were. He says President Clinton's trip to Grand Forks and the national media attention should pave the way for major federal assistance.
The schools here in East Grand Forks are shot. You know, the hospital is gone in Ada. I mean, it's just Breckenridge. And that's just in Minnesota. Look at the fires over here in North Dakota. I mean, I can't imagine that we're not talking, you know, billions of dollars, not millions.
From East Grand Forks, Austin.
Now back to the presidential visit for a moment. As we said, the congressional delegation from the area met with the president today to brief him on the situation here. Our Washington correspondent Melissa Goldfein has more on that.
On the eve of a presidential tour of the devastation, the North Dakota delegation emerged from a White House meeting confident in the administration's support. North Dakota is seeking extra help for people still being assaulted by an unprecedented disaster.
This has really laid a region low, and it's, you know, unlike many hurricanes and earthquakes and tornadoes and so on that come and are over quickly, this flood is just cresting in Grand Forks tonight, and it's going to be around for another 5 or 7 days, and probably it'll be a month or more before people get back into their homes.
The president wants to see the destruction caused by the flood firsthand. Congressman Pomeroy says he's going to be shocked by what he sees.
The president, in flying out, is going to see absolutely an unbelievable scene. Flying out of Grand Forks this morning, you see a expanse of water that goes for 10 or 12 miles.
Mentions of this disaster. I think that's the extraordinary thing here, is the collection of events from the biggest snowfall in the history of the state, then the most powerful winter storm in 50 years, then the worst floods in 500 years. That's an incredible collection of events, and that's why it's an unprecedented disaster that requires an unprecedented response.
The delegation is hopeful that a special relief package will be hammered out in Congress as soon as possible. Melissa Goldfein, WDAY, News Center 6, Washington.
We'll have more on the Grand Forks situation a little later on.
Now here are the latest river levels from the National Weather Service. The Red River continues a slow fall at all locations south of Grand Forks. The river is at a crest now in Grand Forks. North of Grand Forks, the river, of course, still rising. The stage at Wahpeton is 18.30. At Fargo, the stage now is 38.39. That is a drop of more than a foot from Friday's crest of 39.55. At Halstead, the river is at 40.45 feet. At Grand Forks, the river is 53.90 feet, which is more than 5 feet over the previous record of 48.80 set in 1979. On the Cheyenne River, the Valley City reading is 18.24 with little change expected. At Lisbon, 17.62 with a crest of 18.0 expected midweek. At Kindred, 20.84 with little change expected. At West Fargo, the Cheyenne stands at 22.60, little change expected for the next few days. And at Harwood, the reading is now 891.73 with little change expected. The Wild Rice River at Abercrombie is at 22.24 and slowly falling. The Maple River is slowly falling at both Enderlin and Mapleton. The Buffalo River continues to fall slowly. The stage at Dilworth is 18.62. On the Minnesota Wild Rice River, the reading at Hendrum is 33.15 and slowly falling. The Marsh River at Shelley is at 25.0 and slowly falling. The Red Lake River at Crookston stands at 21.88 and slowly falling. Overland flooding still a problem at many locations in our Red River Valley.
With the river going down slowly in the FM area, the flooding situation is looking much better here. It was a frantic weekend of sandbagging, particularly in South Fargo, but most of that work is over. Now residents are cautiously optimistic that their efforts are paying off. Jim Shaw reports.
The Red River is slowly easing its firm grip on an area it has held hostage. The red in Fargo is gradually falling and is down more than a foot since it crested a few days ago.
Basically, had another good 24 hours. The river continues to go down. The drainage system continues to go down.
Our friend, the river, was our enemy a few weeks ago, and even up until we crested. Now it's our friend. As I see the water coming, there's a lot of improvement out there.
This is the fire department to residents of the area. We need help sandbagging at 31 Woodland Drive.
Still, there have been setbacks. Residents of the Woodland area were pressed into emergency sandbagging as water got into the Hovey house and the basement had to be flooded. But the picture is much brighter in southwest Fargo, where the huge contingency dike has been completed and the area is more secure. Homeowners in the area not protected by that dike have finished their own private diking. The Rose Coulee area has been beefed up. At the Melly house, it's been an exhausting last few days of sandbagging, but they feel safer now.
Well, I guess I feel better today. I finally slept last night, and we've all been running due to the noise and everything on sleep deprivation, and just the fact that we're on the wrong side of the dike has caused some concern for me throughout the whole ordeal.
In the Greenfields area, the public dikes are still being patched up while the private ones are done. Neighbors get together to plan the dike watch.
Or if the water comes in from 52nd Avenue and we need to throw up our barricades on our two streets, you'll get a call and say, go up to 52nd Avenue, boom, 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 we do it.
And so they patrol the Greenfields dike 24 hours a day and like what they've been seeing of late.
Pretty promising. I think the way everything is going, the way everything pulled together down here, community effort on the dikes, and the Army Corps has really done a darn nice job. Really looks good. I think we're going to pull through it.
There is a confidence in Fargo that hasn't been seen in weeks here, namely that the hard work and preparations are paying off. Jim Shaw, WDAY, News Center 6.
Fargo's Volunteer Center remains open, but the needs have changed. Volunteers are now needed to monitor pumps and dikes. If you would like to do that, you can call the Volunteer Center at the number 232-9200. You can also call that number if you're a homeowner who needs someone to watch your pumps or dikes.
And this note from Fargo School Superintendent Vern Bennett. There will be no school at Centennial Elementary until Friday. There will be school on Friday, but you will not be able to drive your child to school. If you normally drop off your child at Centennial, you are now being asked to drop them off at First Assembly of God Church, 6 blocks north of Centennial. The children will then be bused to school. When school is over, you need to pick up your child at church. Nothing will change for children who normally take the bus.
And Grand Forks School Superintendent Mark Sanford says 16 of the district's 17 schools are flooded, putting almost 10,000 students out of the classroom. State Superintendent of Schools Wayne Sanford said today those students should enroll in other schools to finish out the year. He says schools all over North Dakota are getting calls from parents who want to know how to enroll their children. And in Moorhead this afternoon, school officials announced families with students who have been displaced because of the flood are encouraged to call the principal's office in Moorhead at this number, 299-6256. Superintendent Bruce Anderson said every effort will be made to accommodate each child's need and provide them with an educational opportunity. And the Fargo-Moorhead Catholic Schools said this afternoon they will accept students from families displaced by flooding. Superintendent Dr. Cheryl Hodick said students from both private and public schools will be accepted tuition-free on a space-available basis. For more information, parents can call the Fargo Catholic Schools Network at 701-293-3780. One more note on the displaced students. Oak Grove Lutheran High School students flooded out of their school will finish their school year at Concordia. They'll begin classes Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. In this school announcement, there will be school tomorrow at Cass Valley North. It's certainly a helpless feeling being flooded out of your home and your city, in fact.
And it's become a way of life for Grand Forks residents. When we come back, reporter Kevin Wallivan shows us how the region is extending a helping hand. Besides providing up-to-date information and pictures on the flood, a message bulletin board has been set up. You can leave any type of flood-related message on the bulletin board. Maybe you have a place for someone displaced by the flood to stay, or maybe you'd just like to get a message to a loved one in Grand Forks. You can read the bulletin board on WDAY's website, and the address is www.in-forum.com. If you want to send an email message, the address for that is flood@forumcom.com.
Northwest Technical College in East Grand Forks is temporarily closed due to the flooding. There will be an interactive TV session at all Northwest Tech campuses tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. During that time, all evacuees in neighboring communities can ask questions of East Grand Forks officials. Well, it could be weeks before the victims of the Grand Forks flood are back in their homes, of course. Many have no place to go. They're finding comfort in nearby communities. Crookston, Minnesota is being credited for opening its doors to thousands. Kevin Wallivan reports.
When building contractors came to work on the new Crookston school today, they found, instead of their work site, an emergency evacuation center for thousands of flood victims from the northern end of the valley. Those who left their homes in the middle of the night with very little came here to find the bare necessities: toothbrushes, soap, underwear, and an emergency grocery store so parents could get diapers and formula for babies. Today we saw faces of desperation and despair. We heard flood stories that sounded more like war stories.
The dike was pretty much protecting us. Once that went, our house went completely under. That's devastating, you know. You take, like we've got everything in our house. We took everything out of our basement, and ripped the carpet and everything out and put it all on the main floor. I never in my wildest dreams imagined it was going to go to the main floor. And, you know, I didn't even get to get my car out of the back garage. That's completely underwater. And
so you have nothing?
I have clothes on our back, what we grabbed, and we took off. And once the dike went, that was it.
We had to be rescued by boat, and all we could take was, we had 3 dogs and 2 cats, and just basically what we were wearing, so.
I seen the water coming down the street. We stayed as long as we could and just took the kids and the wife and packed up and run. And it was just unreal.
There are FEMA representatives here from all over the nation. They're here to walk flood victims through the process to get federal help. Several thousand flood victims from East Grand and Grand Forks have registered at this Crookston Evacuation Center. From here, they go to a dozen churches and schools that have opened up their hearts and doors to their northwestern neighbors. They have been prepared and are willing to do what churches do best: help each other.
That's just our community. It's a loving, caring community. And so we understand the hardships of people because we've had it here.
Every single church in Crookston is providing shelter for the flood victims. 3 hot meals a day, a place to sleep. Today, you can see the strained faces, tired and scared children, and parents who have watched their kids go through a traumatic family crisis.
How do you put it all back together? We just don't know. I mean, we have nothing to go home to now, and it's really hard.
The goal is to get these people out of the short-term shelters and into long-term housing, Bible camps, rental properties. Many want to go back to their houses, but they know it could take weeks. For many, there is no home to go back to. And suddenly, the thought of starting over seems like an impossible, painful task. From Crookston, Kevin Wallivan, WDAY News Center 6.
Having seen the destruction in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, 45 miles downstream in the community of Drayton, residents are understandably concerned, as Terry Doolum now reports, concerned enough to leave.
For Drayton, North Dakota, now it's a race against time. The sugar beet processing plant is being closed down. High school sandbaggers from neighboring towns have been brought in to help with the flood fight itself. Dikes are being raised to new heights. At an emergency town meeting, the question is whether to dig up the high school football field to build more. The pace here has quickened since this weekend. Residents have seen the destruction the red can cause, and there's no question which way the water is headed. Optometrist Tom Dunham's Grand Forks home has already been lost to the flood. Now his business just across the street from the river is being threatened.
Of course, they're diking, but there wasn't any guarantees it was going to hold, and of course, that's what happened in Grand Forks. It didn't hold, so I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it came over to here.
You're not so very far from the river itself.
Across the street, and away we go.
Down the block, a sign on the grocery store window tells the story. Inside, what groceries not snapped up are being put on higher shelves.
Just working night and day to get out of town, get ready to get out of town, moving stuff out of basements, moving it into trailers, getting her out west of here, you know.
Oh, all the water and watching television, and Grand Forks really puts a scare into you, you know.
You scared?
Nervous, very nervous, yeah.
Everett Ozen borrowed a semi to move his and his wife Jan's belongings.
I wish I knew how high the level was going to get and if the dikes were going to hold. I guess that's all. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm. What made you decide to leave?
Grand Forks, what we see on TV about what's happening in Grand Forks, and we just want to get one step ahead of those poor people down there.
Already the elderly, even pets, have been evacuated here, leaving others to decide if and when to leave. Terry Doolum, WDAZ News Center 8, Drayton, North Dakota.
Well, these days we have to look for any blessing we can find, and so far it's been no moisture in the weather that we have now. That helps.
It does. Some nice days coming up.
Yeah.
Looks like it'll last for a few more. Tell you about next.
Let me be a seeker of knowledge. Looks good, but make that out a little bit bigger. Perfect. Let me travel uncharted paths. And let me use my creativity
to make the world a better place in which to live.
We must not forget. Dakota yesterday told us that a 10-year FEMA official, and certainly probably they have longer time employees than that, but a 10-year man told him that he had never seen flooding like this before. And the one thing we can be thankful for, floods often do take lives, and as far as we know, as far as there have been no reports of fatalities from the flooding in Greater Grand Forks, the one bright spot in all of this is that we have had no fatalities, so that is something important for the President to know. But certainly the damage he will see, as you are seeing from these pictures, is extensive.
Again, people displaced statewide, we've heard. We're going to see a picture of the Air Force chopper. This is what the President will be touring the region in today. Unlimited access, I guess you could say, to the flood damage in Grand Forks area.
Some people sometimes will say, well, what good does it do to have an official come and visit? Obviously, the President is important, not just for the fact that he is the top official in the country and it's a public relations thing, well, it's a morale thing for one thing, but also the fact that both governors of Minnesota and North Dakota are asking for a more fair split in their mind, generally in these sorts of disasters, at 75% funded, paid for by the government, 25% paid for by the federal government, 25% paid for by the state. Ed Schaefer from North Dakota says the state can't even afford any matching. He's asking the government for a 100% effort on the federal side. Arnie Carlson at this point has asked the federal government to pay 90% of the share of rebuilding in the eastern side or in northwest Minnesota. So that's an important part. The president gets here and sees it firsthand, and certainly he cannot but be moved, as everyone who has seen this. We've been taking calls from all over the country, basically all over the world, people wanting to know what's going on. Even just today, I took a call from Charlotte, North Carolina, an ABC station, wondering if they could courier us some water. They were worried about us here at DAZ. They know that we are in the mandatory evacuation zone, mostly surrounded by water. I was able to tell her that thankfully we do have a little bit of access, and the Red Cross has been good in getting us water and food, so she didn't need to courier us any water. But just they know what's going on here, and their thoughts are with us all over the country, obviously.
There is quite an outpouring of support. Again, like I was saying, people displaced all over the state of North Dakota, some people perhaps going to their homes in Minnesota. Again, this is what it looked like in the downtown area yesterday. I was talking to my mother yesterday, and she said that out in Williston, they're organizing some relief efforts for the people here in Grand Forks. They've taken in quite a few people as far away as Williston. Again, in Minot, apparently the mall there, the largest mall in the city, is organizing, bringing clothing, food, any kind of necessary items for the people here. So quite an outpouring of support. Again, people offering their homes.
That's a car, by the way.
Yes, the tops of cars. Rob Vogel and photographer Chris Regenball went through this area, and Chris knows this area pretty well as I do. And you know whose houses they are, and you wonder if the people got out and if they're safe and how they're doing today. And it's quite a sight to see. But as we were saying, the boats that were taking the photographers, the media pool through the area, you can't even tell where the vehicles are. The water is so deep in some spots. They have to be very careful navigating through these streets that have now become river channels.
Some of the historic homes to the south of the downtown area, obviously some homes on the historic register in that area, and some of the buildings that burned downtown on the historic register. So an important part of our history, of our culture in this city has been ruined by either floodwaters or fire. And those are things that you can never get back. You can rebuild a building, but you can't get back records. You can't get back photographs and those sorts of items. Certainly our hearts go out to the Grand Forks Herald, whose upper floor burned, and they lost an unbelievable amount of information, 100 years of microfiche with going back to the very beginning of the Grand Forks Herald in this community. Those sorts of things, I believe they do not have backups of some of that stuff, and it's lost forever. So.
Again, President Clinton saying he will provide some very creative ways to help the area rebuild. And Mayor Pat Owens, all along, she was saying, we can rebuild, we will rebuild. The main concern is not losing life. And luckily, so far, no casualties in this flood. And this is a look in East Grand Forks. This is another boat tour across the river. We've been unable to get across. Luckily, we had our sister station, WDAY, was able to get up to East Grand Forks. This is what it looks like throughout the downtown area. Again, homes, water up to the rooftops in some spots.
That's the last area as of yesterday. Unfortunately, our efforts to get information we have so much to try and gather. We should probably find out whether they were able to save the police building in East Grand Forks. These are pictures from yesterday. The one building that was somewhat dry in that area was the brand new police department annex. They just built that building, or at least had their grand opening in the last year there.
Houses tipped off their foundations in some spots. That looked like a garage that might have been tipped over a couple of shots ago.
And there was what was a dangerous situation early on. Obviously power lines everywhere. And it's hard to, I've seen these pictures now, and this would be the second time, and it's still not easy to watch them and not to at least be at a loss for words sometimes. I know we have people in the shelters who watch us quite faithfully and hoping to see a glimpse of their neighborhood. And hopefully that puts their mind at ease. At least they can stop wondering at some point. Obviously, we haven't been able to get to every neighborhood. Hopefully, through aerial photographs, you can at least send some of our river level type shots. We've been able to see at least some semblance of what your neighborhood might be like. We know of a lot of employers who's lost their businesses. A lot of people worried about whether they'll have a job to come back to. I know my second cousin is a dentist in town. He's hoping that his insurance will cover his business loss so that he can continue to pay his employees who, you know, he has his dental assistants, his receptionists, you know, so hopefully his insurance will kick in for that. But some of these mom and pop operations, small businesses may not have carried the coverage they needed. So people, you know, we've had some other personal calls today, people saying that they were maybe relocated to Crookston and were already there looking for a job someplace else because they know there's not going to be a job for them to come back to, and they need the money. They can't wait as long as the assistants might be able to hold out. They might not be able to wait that long.
Also, the students, you have to think about the students too. North Dakota Superintendent of Schools Wayne Sandstead was saying that perhaps some students should continue their education elsewhere, finish out the year in other school districts, and I hear there is talk of doing that in some communities around North Dakota where some of these students have been displaced. Again, the class of '97 will never forget this year.
No.
Who knows when they'll have a commencement ceremony. Many of these students wondering when they get to finish their education.
And my cousins have moved to Minneapolis for the time being, and she told me that they were planning on putting their young children into a classroom, not so much because of the educational aspects, although that's important, but more to take their minds off of what is happening. They don't know exactly what their home is like, but they are down on Chestnut Street, so a lot of water in that neighborhood, and it's very hard on the children and the family, but especially for the children. They're hoping to get them into a school in Minneapolis, at least to try and keep the kids' mind off what's happening.
In East Grand Forks, we just got this information from John Roach from the school, and East Grand Forks is closed for the remainder of the school year. However, the State Department of Public Instruction has said any student wishing to continue can register at any school in the state of Minnesota. There will be a graduation ceremony with dates announced later. And efforts are also underway to complete some high school league activities, and there will be a hotline number for staff announced soon. That's for the East Grand Forks School District. So apparently he must have been reading our minds when we were talking about the school situation in North Dakota and here in Minnesota. So tens of thousands of students again. As many as, I believe, 9,000 students could be affected here in the Grand Forks School District alone. So quite a number of people waiting to finish out their education here in the area.
The long-lasting effects are unknown. Not getting an education, not having a home, all sorts of different situations. We are probably going to take a quick break here and decide exactly how we're going to proceed for the rest of the president's visit. He is not scheduled to land from his tour until about 12:50, and then he has the a briefing with all sorts of officials, and we now, according to what Austin told us, that will be open to the press. So if that's all mic'd up and we can hear, we'll also carry that live. And of course, the president's address to the refugees will be an important. We hear
helicopters overhead.
Over
maybe
our
it's the
station,
president.
so it's most likely it is, because when the president is in your town, airspace is restricted. So the only helicopters that would be in the air right now would be his and the entourage that is with him. So it is quite possible that they just flew over our studios on South Washington in Grand Forks.
And we might even try to get a picture from our rooftop camera of the president as he flies overhead. We'll see if we can bring that to you a little later on.
As we've stressed, the president is here to see damage that he has seen on the national news. Another advantage of having the national news here is that people in Washington have already seen some of this devastation, but as we know it ourselves, we see the pictures sitting here, and then if we get a chance to go outside and actually see it in person, pictures are devastating enough, the video that we take, but to see it in person sometimes, and hopefully you'll get a chance to talk to some of the people who have been displaced and get their personal stories. That brings it home even much more than we can as a broadcast media.
Again, as many as 2,000 people he'll get a chance to talk to at the Grand Forks Air Force Base alone. Again, they're staying at a 3-bay hangar at the base. Ocean of cots as it's being described. Again, family and friends just holding on to one another. Many of them just got out with the clothes on their backs or just a suitcase full of clothing, and that's about all they could carry with them as they were leaving their home. Apparently, here's a shot from our rooftop camera, I do believe. This is the president's helicopter tour of the area. Again, he's getting a wide open view of what's going on here in the greater Grand Forks area.
You know, we put that camera up there with the intention that we might be our only pictures to get, and it's actually proved to be quite invaluable. We've been able to watch quite a few things going on just around our station as water has risen up through the storm sewers and begun to surround us. Even though we've also been able to get around a lot more than we thought we might be able to, it certainly has come in handy quite often. Why don't we take that break right now, and we'll be right back.
WDAY-TV, Channel 6, Fargo.
Until there are no more people in need. Until everyone in every neighborhood knows how to save a life. Until you and those you love gain the knowledge to be safer. Your Red Cross will be there, close to home. If you believe in all the Red Cross does, please help us keep doing it. Call now and offer your support. The American Red Cross.
If you sometimes forget things, and it's happening more often, it's not necessarily your age. Maybe you just have a lot on your mind. But it never hurts to be sure. There are people who can help. The National Institute on Aging has a booklet filled with useful information about forgetfulness and memory loss. To get your free copy, just call 1-800-438-4380. Don't forget.
Welcome back to our continuous flood coverage here on News Center 8. Again, President Clinton is flying overhead, getting a bird's eye view of the devastation here in the Grand Forks area. This is another shot from our rooftop camera of the president's helicopter. It's a Marine One helicopter, right?
Marine One is what it's called. He, if I believe, we're not out wide enough to see, but I believe he's going probably north to south. Is that correct? Or is that farther up north from our studios? He's definitely over the eastern part of the city, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly some of the harder hit areas are close to the river, but there's also some homes not far from the river that didn't take on nearly as much water as others. It's a very unusual situation. Yeah, now we can see he is just off to the east of our studios, which are at 24th Avenue South. Really the main town starts to, well, it goes quite a ways down past 32nd Avenue South, but sometimes people consider 32nd Avenue South the edge of town. Certainly a lot of development east of 32nd, or east of Washington and south of 32nd right along the river, and some of those homes definitely underwater, although that was a little bit higher ground from some of the pictures we saw yesterday. So he's certainly heading over towards the river. He's right over basically the top of the river right now. Probably might head over to East Grand, and now it looks like they're kind of hovering around and returning back
It would be really interesting to be a fly on the wall, so to speak, in that helicopter and just find out what his reaction is to all of the flooding here in the Grand Forks area. Again, President Clinton promising to do anything he can to get an increase in emergency funding for the area. He says Congress will find a way to provide the necessary support. He cites bipartisan support for similar disasters around the country. Again, he says people here are quite literally in a fight for their lives. He had a White House briefing this morning, and that's what he told the people there today.
I can imagine that he must be somewhat awestruck, as many of our reporters who have had the opportunity to go down into the war zone, as we can call it, have been just really overwhelmed with what they've been seeing. Not any attempt. Rob Vogel took that boat tour, and at one point during the tour, cameraman Chris Radenbald panned over a little bit, and you could see Rob sitting there, and he even admits that he looked stunned. Very numbed, and he had no expression on his face. Very difficult to deal with, and especially when it's your community that's underwater, and you're out there seeing people's homes that you know. It's a very difficult thing.
Again, yesterday on World News Tonight, talking to one of the sheriff's deputies, Aaron Hayes did, and he said, I don't even recognize my own community. This is my town. I don't even recognize it anymore. So.
What's happening now the rest of the afternoon, we are going to break away for a bit while we wait for the president to come back from his aerial tour. Right after that, he's scheduled to meet with all sorts of different officials who will brief him on what happened here, what it was he just saw, what they're asking for. I'm sure it will be a very comprehensive briefing of the president on the situation here. And that, we expect, will be covered. The media will be allowed in, whether we'll have a lot of microphones and be able to hear what's going on. If that's the case, we will stick with that and get the update as the president hears it. If we can't do that, then we'll probably end up just doing a quick thing with that, and then for sure, when the president addresses the evacuees that are at the Grand Forks Air Force Base, for sure, we will have that speech. And as it's scheduled now, that will start around 2 or 2:15. President's not scheduled to leave till 4, so it's quite possible that will be a fairly lengthy address by the president to those evacuees out at the Air Force Base.
So we invite you to join us back then. Stay tuned. We'll keep you updated. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.
This has been a special report from WDAY News Center 6. We now rejoin our regularly scheduled program.
To have you. And I am truly touched by all this concern you're showing for Sonia. She's a...
Better than ever, and we'll be there with you every step of the way. Thank you, and God bless you.
People in flood-ravaged Grand Forks and East Grand Forks get words of encouragement from the consoler-in-chief. Good afternoon. President Clinton says rebuilding Grand Forks will be a long-term prospect. Speaking to Grand Forks flood victims this afternoon, the president promised federal help. Clinton made the pledge after taking an aerial tour of the devastation on both sides of the Red River. The Red, now at 26 feet over flood stage, inundated Grand Forks over the weekend, and a downtown fire destroyed or damaged 11 buildings. The president promised an intensive federal mission to help residents recover. Terry Daniels is live in Grand Forks now with the latest.
The Red River has crested. However, it is holding at about 26 feet above flood stage, and we're told it could be that way for a couple of days. Now, tens of thousands of residents are out of their homes, and about 90% of Grand Forks looks like this, way too much water. The president wanted to see for himself. President Clinton took a helicopter ride to get a bird's-eye view of the devastation. He saw entire neighborhoods with only rooftops visible. Smoke could still be seen in downtown, where a weekend fire destroyed 11 buildings. And many roads and businesses remain underwater.
We have hardly ever seen such a remarkable demonstration of courage and commitment and cooperation and basic human strength, and we are very impressed and proud to be Americans when we see what you have done in the face of this terrible disaster.
North Dakota Governor Ed Schaefer is asking the president for all the federal help possible.
We're looking at a very long rebuilding process, but I think North Dakotans are up to it.
We're trying everything we can to get some help.
The Thompson family lost their home and are among the thousands of people who will need help.
Now it's like a little bit more shocking. It's really hard to look at. It's really hard to look at.
It's unbelievable. It's like, it's pretty bad out there, you know. No one ever thought this would ever happen here.
And with large piles of snow still to melt, the debris-filled floodwater will be here for some time to come. After seeing the devastation himself, President Clinton has been meeting with some of the people who are staying in the huge shelter that was set up in a hangar at the Air Force Base on the edge of town. In Grand Forks, North Dakota, I'm Terry Daniels reporting. Now back to you.
Okay, thank you, Terry, very much. President Clinton is asking Congress for another $200 million toward the flood recovery effort. The money would be used for flood control and disaster loans and grants. That would bring the total federal package for the Dakotas and Minnesota to $488 million. In a rare move, Clinton also ordered the Federal Emergency Management Agency to pay 100% of the emergency work rather than the usual 75%. City engineer Ken Vian described to President Clinton how the city's infrastructure was devastated, that the river current is so swift that it is cutting new channels. Vian says many of the areas can never be rebuilt. Clinton says everyone in Congress will be sympathetic, but he says action could be delayed in Congress if other interests try to, in his words, ride along on the train and add their own provisions. He says he's asking Congress to do what's right for Grand Forks and, in his words, resist whatever temptation we might have to get something else done. Neil Carlson is standing by live with more on President Clinton's visit. We'll go to him in a moment. But first, an update on East Grand Forks. The mail will be delivered to residents who have evacuated the town of 9,000 people. The East Grand Forks postmaster returned to the city's flooded post office today to retrieve mail that had to be left behind.
This is phenomenal. Absolutely unbelievable what's happening right now. They don't have any idea how bad it really is, do they?
East Grand Forks city residents can pick up their mail at the Crookston Post Office between noon and 5 p.m. Rural East Grand Forks residents can get theirs at the Fisher Post Office from 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and from 1:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. We will have much more on East Grand Forks on News 11 at 6. There were many consoling words from President Clinton today. He said the next few days will be hard on flood victims after they begin to realize what has been lost. But Clinton said the city could rebuild stronger and better than ever. He also said that no matter what people have lost, what they have saved and shown to the world is something they should be proud of. Clinton says everybody in Congress will be sympathetic to aid for the flood victims, but he says action could be delayed in Congress if other interests try to, in his words, ride along the train and add their own provisions. Flood refugees from Grand Forks and East Grand Forks were very anxious to hear what President Clinton had to say today. They want to know how much help they can get rebuilding their homes and their lives. Neil Carlson was there when the president arrived. He joins us now from Grand Forks. Neil, did the president's visit boost spirits there?
Yes, it did. Darren, a bit of hope was spread over flood-ravaged Grand Forks and East Grand Forks today, as President Clinton and others put on their face of courage in the wake of disaster.
Scenes of what Armageddon must look like awaited the president in downtown Grand Forks. As Air Force One touched down at the Grand Forks Air Force Base this morning, the enormity of the situation was being shown to the world. Upon landing, President Clinton greeted Governors Ed Schaefer and Arnie Carlson, and a long line of others who worked so hard with a cast of thousands to try and save the cities of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. UND President Ken Baker's wife, Toby, was one of many who watched the president's arrival.
We're hoping to have him come and visit our campus because we're doing remarkable things there, and we'd really like to have him see what we have been able to achieve in spite of a disaster.
Is there much damage around campus yet, or it's hard to?
If you look at the entire community as a whole, the damage to our university is very little.
From the air, the president got a bird's-eye view of the devastation that lay below. A tragedy for our region that is simply unparalleled and unprecedented. A tragedy from which will spring recovery.
And when I saw pictures of some of you stacking sandbags in a blizzard, I thought that I had bad reception on my television at first. It was an amazing thing. I don't recall ever in my life seeing anything like this, and I have been very impressed by the courage and the faith that all of you have shown in the face of what has been a terrible, terrible dilemma.
But one of the phrases I have in my heart, with you people here helping us, is the phrase from the Bible that says, "It's my brother, he's not heavy, and we will rebuild, and we will be much stronger in the future." And we will be there.
President Clinton talked a lot today about help to governments, but it remains to be seen what's going to happen with individuals who are in financial straits. Darren?
Okay, thanks a lot, Neil. Reporting live from Grand Forks. Tom Szymanski, as always, is watching the situation from his, from outside the back door of KVLY and also from his weather computers. And hopefully we have Tom standing by now. Are you there, Tom?
I'm here.
How's it going there?
Are retiring this evening in clean clothes. It may not mean a lot to just everyday life, but to these people after a week, this means a great deal. And also, there were people today who were showering. That sounds like a small thing in the real world, but that is a big thing in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks now.
I don't recall ever in my life seeing anything like this, and I have been very impressed by the courage and the faith that all of you have shown in the face of what has been a terrible, terrible dilemma.
People in flood-ravaged Grand Forks and East Grand Forks get words of encouragement from the Consoler-in-Chief. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us in tonight. President Clinton brought a message of hope and support to the people of the northern Red River Valley today.
And he brought along the heads of many of the departments and agencies that will be asked to help rebuild the cities. Air Force One brought Clinton, FEMA Director James Lee Witt, Health and Human Services Secretary Donna Shalala, Agriculture Secretary Dan Glickman, the head of the Small Business Administration, and the Secretary of the Army, just to name a few. They were greeted by the governors of North Dakota and Minnesota and congressional delegations from both states. Also, the mayors of Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, Fargo, and Moorhead. Well, the people of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks were anxious to hear what the president would have to say today.
They want to know how much help they can get rebuilding their homes and their lives. Neil Carlson reports.
Scenes of what Armageddon must look like awaited the president in downtown Grand Forks. As Air Force One touched down at the Grand Forks Air Force Base this morning, the enormity of the situation was being shown to the world. Upon landing, President Clinton greeted Governors Ed Schaefer and Arnie Carlson, and a long line of others who worked so hard with a cast of thousands to try and save the cities of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. UND President Ken Baker's wife, Toby, was one of many who watched the president's arrival.
We're hoping to have him come and visit our campus because we're doing remarkable things there, and we'd really like to have him see what we have been able to achieve in spite of a disaster.
Is there much damage around campus yet, or it's hard to?
If you look at the entire community as a whole, the damage to our university is very little.
From the air, the president got a bird's-eye view of the devastation that lay below. A tragedy for our region that is simply unparalleled and unprecedented. A tragedy from which will spring recovery.
And when I saw pictures of some of you stacking sandbags in a blizzard, I thought that I had bad reception on my television at first. It was an amazing thing. I don't recall ever in my life seeing anything like this, and I have been very impressed by the courage and the faith that all of you have shown in the face of what has been a terrible, terrible dilemma.
But one of the phrases I have in my heart, with you people here helping us, is the phrase from the Bible that says, "It's my brother, he's not heavy, and we will rebuild, and we will be much stronger in the future." And we will be there.
President Clinton says the disaster is the worst he's ever seen, and he's promising that the nation will work hard to help residents rebuild. He's asking Congress for another $200 million toward the flood recovery effort. The money would be used for flood control and disaster loans and grants. That would bring the total federal package for the Dakotas and Minnesota to $488 million. In a rare move, Clinton also ordered the Federal Emergency Management Agency to pay 100% of the emergency work rather than the usual 75% with local and state match.
Next few days are going to be very, very hard on a lot of people. A lot of you who've been very, very brave and courageous and helped your friends and neighbors it's going to sink in on you what you have been through and what has been lost.
It just really helps everybody in this community out, I think, emotionally and financially.
Now here's another look at some of the aerial view that President Clinton got this afternoon. The view from the sky may not have the same impact as a boat ride through the flooded streets, but it does let us see the magnitude of the flood. Residential streets are like canals with houses literally standing in various depths of muddy water. And the view above downtown Grand Forks clearly shows, as you're about to see, the burned out remains of no fewer than 6 buildings in downtown Grand Forks, and fire damage to at least 3 other buildings. Well, Coast Guard crews are still searching for holdouts of the flood in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. Some people are trying to wait out the water in their homes or apartments. It's the Coast Guard's job to find those people and get them out safely. Crews went door to door by boat today. This apartment building still has electricity, but it also has water nearly up to the ceiling of the first level. It's a dangerous mix for anyone inside.
The building's still got electricity to it, so he's probably cooking or doing something with heat, which could have a fire here with all the other buildings, everything empty. And we'll have another mess like we had 3 blocks over with the big fire.
A floor-by-floor search of that building today turned up empty. If there is someone inside the building, and these officers think there is, they haven't managed to elude the Coast Guard again. Officers do not have the authority to kick in doors, so their search must continue. It'll be weeks before anyone in East Grand Forks is allowed to go home.
Authorities are only letting folks return for emergency reasons. The city's trying to get videotapes together for residents to view their homes and neighborhoods. But first, the city is trying to get evacuees connected with the rest of the world. As Paul Fredericks found out, one way is simply to get out the mail.
The quiet was almost eerie in East Grand Forks.
These are bigger than I thought they were going to be. Same here.
National Guard troops, the only noise heard in this temporary ghost town. Today's mission, getting to the East Grand Forks post office. Through rain, sleet, snow, or flood, the mail will be delivered.
Oh, shit, it's really deep down by the bridge. Oh, isn't that unreal? Look at that current going through there.
I know.
This is phenomenal. Absolutely unbelievable what's happening right now. They don't have any idea how bad it really is, do they?
At one point, President Clinton's helicopter passed overhead as he got a bird's eye view of the devastation.
Okay, here, down, no, it's ground.
Relief for the city's postmaster, Harry Miscavige. Water nestled up against the post office, but spared the main floor.
Basement's the only thing I lost.
Can you believe?
No, that I'm probably the only business that's survived. Unbelievable. Probably the only business in probably two towns that will be salvageable.
East Grand Forks residents will soon be able to pick up their mail at the Crookston and Fisher post offices. First, the remaining mail here has to be evacuated to drier ground.
Now we got to take it with us. So we're in good shape. Nobody lost any mail. That's the best part. We got a lot to do, boys.
It'll be weeks before the town dries out. Meanwhile, the National Guard keeps a watchful eye on the city.
See what's going on. So, City of East Grand Forks, can I help you?
A makeshift city hall has been set up at the Comfort Inn Motel on the edge of town. Most of these workers lost their homes to the flood.
I've been answering phones. I came here to check things out, and I end up answering phones. But we've tried, and people, are just then that's the thing that they want to know. What is East Grand Forks like?
East Grand Forks vows to rebuild, but this community may never be the same. Not just its infrastructure, but its state of mind.
It's still a lot of bad feelings on, all the Red River Valley, it's out to get us type thing. But I think that we'll pull together and it'll be okay.
East Grand Forks water treatment plant is in a little better shape than the Grand Forks plant, but both systems are down and it could be weeks before they're operating again. Downstream, some people in the Drayton and Pembina areas are still trying to fight the flood even though they're under an evacuation order. In Pembina today, all 600 residents were ordered out. At the hardware store, they moved everything to the roof. At the town's only grocery store, all food was either carried out or moved to higher shelves. The river is expected to crest 2 feet above Pembina's permanent dike, which could leave the town's main street under more than 6 feet of water. In Drayton, where the water will hit first, things are even more desperate. Volunteers began a frantic attempt today to raise their 2 miles of their dike. They say what happened in Grand Forks serves as more than a wake-up call.
You could call it that, but we know it's coming. It's hardly what you call a wake-up call. We're just trying to get out of here before it comes, because you know it's going to be here.
I-29 into Canada is closed and has been turned into a dike. There are also massive flood preparations underway in Winnipeg and Manitoba.
Here are the latest river levels for you. For the Red River, Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, 54 feet. It is cresting and will hold steady for the next 36 to 48 hours. At Wahpeton, Breckenridge, 17.96 feet, falling to 17 feet by Sunday. At Hickson, 36.3 feet. At Fargo, 37.80, should fall to 37 by Friday. At Halstead, 40.04, a slow fall. At Drayton, 45.04, with a crest of 48 to 49.
And that building right in the very middle of your screen, right on the edge of town, is the communication center. And you can see that the whole downtown area, Don, is dark. There's no lights, and of course no people down here, except for that island of lights that we had, that we showed you in the first part. So, bend down, send it back to you.
All right, Captain, thank you very much for your good work. Now, we want to go back to the station where Colleen Needles is standing by. Colleen, we've kind of lost touch with what is going down in the metropolitan area, but I understand that the people are just pitching in to help all they can up here.
Absolutely. Many people are watching this, and a lot are wishing there was more that they can do. We're going to tell people a little bit later in the newscast what we can all do to pitch in for those folks. Thanks, Don. Well, you may know that many flood victims are staying here in the Twin Cities with family and friends. We found one house that was so full, one woman is actually having to stay in her van.
I sleep back here. I sleep there.
Deborah Turberg is sleeping in her van because her mother's one-bedroom apartment must house 11 other people. They're going to stay here in the Twin Cities until they can all go back to Grand Forks to see what's left of their own homes. Well, there's so many flood refugees in the Twin Cities that the Red Cross has opened a service center in Minneapolis. A steady stream of people got vouchers today for emergency food, clothes, and prescription medicine. And WCCO continues to team up with the Red Cross to help raise money for the flood victims. If you're feeling helpless, wish there was something you could do, you can. You can call this number, 330-2764. Any size donation is welcome, whether it is $1 or $100. Through your incredible generosity, we have already raised more than $300,000. Our phone lines are going to be open until 11 tonight. We're going to repeat that number just a little bit later in the newscast. They take credit cards, but if you can't get through tonight, just be assured the phone bank is going to be running throughout the week, so you can give it a call if you have difficulty getting in. The lines do get tied up. Well, there is still much more ahead on 4 News at 10. Peruvian forces stormed the Japanese embassy, ending a 5-month hostage crisis. We're going to have those dramatic pictures from Lima in just a moment.
Our cool, dry April's becoming a trend. We'll show you in weather.
And the Twins and A's square off in Oakland. We'll have those highlights.
Dave Peckskamp does the work of many these days. As manager of Shotwell Floral in the flooded Oak Grove neighborhood, he sent several of his employees to another location. That's because a dike directly behind the greenhouse is getting weaker.
With all the water on it, we're starting to get a little seepage, a little leakage. It's starting to get soft.
Construction crews added sand to the bottom of the dike today in hopes of keeping the clay from washing out.
It's been doing the job so far. It's just we want to stay ahead of it.
Meanwhile, folks at this floral company are falling behind during one of their busiest times. The greenhouse here at Shotwell Floral is stocked and ready to go. The problem is trucks that need to deliver these flowers to towns in Minnesota and North Dakota can't get to where they're going because of the flood. And that means employees left here at the greenhouse must maintain the flowers and hope they come out ahead in the long run.
It's really going to hurt. But I guess we're better off than Grand Forks, Wahpeton. A lot of our local competitors have lost everything.
Feeling grateful, the company decided to share a touch of spring with the Oak Grove neighborhood. The people that stuck it out were given yellow flowers. They're on doorsteps, on boats, they're even on sandbag dikes.
Well, if there is a positive side, that certainly helped. It helped.
One of Fargo's hardest hit neighborhoods is in bloom, despite the mud and mess. Christy Stolhansky, KVLY News 11.
And here are tonight's flood-related announcements. The North Dakota Coca-Cola Youth Bowling Tournament and State Bowling Tournament has moved from Grand Forks to Bismarck, North Dakota, May 3rd and 4th, 10th, 11th, 17th, and 18th. Coaches and youth bowlers are asked to please contact the state tournament officials to reschedule. Dell's Restaurant in Grand Forks South Forks Plaza is trying to track down its employees to determine where to send their paychecks. Employees call Lisa Archer, 701-594-4714. The staff of United Lutheran in Grand Forks will host a worship and gathering for anyone from Grand Forks, so I assume East Grand Forks also, Thursday evening at the North Campus of Hope Lutheran Church in Fargo. That's at 7. All Grand Forks Central and Red River High School speech team members who have qualified for NFL are asked to call 281-8468 or 282-4303 for information on getting there.
In that last story, it was so nice to see those rows of flowers. Oh.
And it's warm enough for
wonderful
flowers now.
sight, yeah.
'Tis a season for change, though. Did you know on this date back in 1958, Mystic Lake, Montana had 6 feet of snow?
I'm glad that didn't happen here.
I'm just illustrating how weird the weather can be at this time of the year.
April is a strange month, and this is one of the stranger Aprils.
However, we're in a good pattern now.
10 o'clock newscast tonight at 11:35, right after Politically Incorrect.
We now bring you coverage from WDAZ in Grand Forks.
President Clinton comes to Grand Forks to see the flood disaster firsthand and to offer hope to the flood victims. You'll hear the moving stories of the flood evacuees and find out how the federal government plans to help the region.
These stories and much more coming up next on News Center
8. Joyce, Sweeney Sports. This is your home team from News Center 8.
Well, with icy floodwaters lapping at rooftops, President Clinton flew by helicopter today to see the swamped ghost towns of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. The president has pledged nearly $500 million to help Red River flood victims in North Dakota and in Minnesota.
Good evening. News Center 8 has complete coverage of the president's visit tonight. We also want to welcome our viewers throughout the state of North Dakota on the North Dakota ABC network, KMCY in Minot, KBMY in Bismarck. And we know we have a lot of flood evacuees who are in those communities and in other communities within those stations' viewing areas, and that's why we are bringing you the special coverage tonight. President Clinton says he will ask Congress for $488 million in flood assistance for the Dakotas and Minnesota, and that includes the $259 million he has previously requested.
And in a rare move, the president has ordered the Federal Emergency Management Agency to pay 100% of the immediate emergency work needed in the areas flooded by the raging Red River. And we begin our flood fight coverage tonight with reporter Kevin Wallivan.
President Clinton's first visit to North Dakota today comes as the Red River Valley deals with its worst disaster ever. The impressive, massive Air Force One pulled into the Grand Forks Air Force Base today, bringing the president and an unprecedented list of cabinet secretaries, all here to witness firsthand the destruction caused by an unforgettable winter and spring. Soon the president, still nursing his injury, came off Air Force One. he met with Minnesota and North Dakota's congressional delegations and Red River Valley mayors, telling them he is asking Congress for an additional $200 million for the area, bringing the total flood relief package so far to nearly $500 million. Then the president got on board a Marine helicopter to witness for himself the devastation of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, the flooding, the burned out buildings, a part of America that today looks more like post-war Europe. The president calls it a heart-wrenching tour. Houses covered with floodwaters, businesses and schools destroyed.
With blizzards, floods, and fires all at the same time. I had never seen that before. And when I saw pictures of some of you stacking sandbags in a blizzard, I thought that I had bad reception on my television at first. It was an amazing thing. I don't recall ever in my life seeing anything like this, and I have been very impressed by the courage and the faith that all of you have shown in the face of what has been a terrible, terrible dilemma.
In an unprecedented move, Clinton told flood victims and local officials FEMA will pay the full costs of emergency work, 100%. It's clear the president's visit today and the flood coverage he's watched made the difference.
Anyone who has been here and seen the destruction, as I have, knows that this is not an ordinary disaster, if there is such a thing. The people here are giving 100%, and we should too.
Grand Forks Mayor Pat Owens was moved to tears when she heard the president speak, but the president too was moved after hearing the mayor speak from the heart.
And President Clinton, you give us hope. You are a bright star right now within our community. And I believe within our communities, the people that have lost their homes and possibly lost their business and all their possessions have had a tear in their eye and wiped it and went on to help the other people within the community, which has just amazed me. I tell you, I am so proud to lead this community. But one of the phrases I have in my heart, with you people here helping us, is the phrase from the Bible that says, "It's my brother, he's not heavy, and we will rebuild, and we will be much stronger in the future." And we will be there. Lynn Stouse and I will be in the boat till the last dog leaves.
Know that we are going to be there over the long run, and the rest of America has, I think, looked with great compassion and pain, but also enormous admiration at the heroic conduct of the people of this community and of all these states in the last several days, when they've gone through things that most of the rest of us can't imagine. We could never imagine facing a flood and a fire and a blizzard all at the same time. And we admire you greatly, and we're going to do what we can to be there with you over the long haul.
Clearly, today's visit by the president, along with national and international media attention, will spotlight the tragedy in the valley. But when the banner headlines and lead stories stop, the valley hopes the compassion and the help do not.
Mayor Owens elected by 72% just last year. Good timing for us to have her in charge.
That's right.
Well, the president's visit was an exciting event for many in the Grand Forks community, but was it enough to lift the spirits of people living in masses in an Air Force hangar?
Well, News Center 8's Laura Gallegos has the story of the hundreds with no place to go.
The cheers echoed through this drafty Air Force hangar for the President of the United States. But underneath the crowds of people, cots containing the only possessions left to Grand Forks residents tell a sad story unlike the excitement above.
There are large numbers of people, and as you can tell, they've been living very, very close in ways that they've never lived before. What we try to do, and it's really a challenge, we're trying to treat them as individuals, families as families.
Jerome Pulowski is one of those individuals who's lost a home. For today, he's happy that the president is here.
We all appreciate what he had to say, because we're all down in the dumps right now. Our basements are full, all our furniture is flooded down and everything, and we're It's encouraging that he said we would get help and people behind us.
On Saturday night, 3,300 people were staying at the Air Force Base shelters. Now about 1,600 remain. Volunteers say the lengthy stay is taking a toll on some.
I do think those shelter life is becoming a wearing factor in people's living today. I still think, frankly, that there's a lot of shock still in place. I think people haven't dealt with the hard reality of the days ahead.
For a day, the president brought hope, inspiration, and comfort that the nation might care to many in this community. But tomorrow, evacuees will wake up in the same cots without a home and no place to go.
News Tonight's Laura Gallegos reporting there. Elizabeth Dole will be in Grand Forks tomorrow to tour flooded areas. Dole is the president of the American Red Cross. She is scheduled to be in Grand Forks at about 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, and she'll spend the afternoon taking a boat tour of affected neighborhoods with North Dakota Governor Ed Schaefer, and she also plans to visit families and workers at the local Red Cross shelter tomorrow. So still getting a lot of attention from Washington.
Well, yes, that's true. Thousands of evacuees are not only staying in the Air Force Base, but they have spread out into the community of Devil's Lake. They believe they have well over 1,000, if not 2,000 evacuees in that community, many of them at UND Lake Region.
And News Center 8's Kurt Lenz has that story.
Have you had your tetanus shots yet?
Yeah, we were sandbagging before we left. We're doing everything we can to meet the individual and group needs of these evacuees.
Devil's Lake was expecting flood troubles this year, but not someone else's. Now at least 2,000 Grand Forks flood evacuees live here.
We're busy doing things for other people, helping other people move. And it wasn't until the last minutes that we realized, wait a minute, this is going to affect us. You know, so it was a very last-minute thing, grabbing up some of our belongings, making some strange decisions about what to take, what not to take. It was just a shock.
The UND Lake Region campus has gone from a small college to a large flood shelter.
I just can't say enough about all of the volunteers and all of the public services. I have been just as willing, and of course coordinating through the emergency center in the county, and we're working together as a team here.
Over 1,300 flood victims call the college home now, and people continue to filter in. They'll get their basic needs met. Medical services such as tetanus shots and nursing care for the sick. Rows of cots are set up for the tired, and free meals wait for the hungry. It's a production greatly appreciated.
I'm very appreciative. I think it's just, we came with hardly anything, and just to have a few basic needs really makes you feel much better.
Hugs are regular occurrences here, providing valuable comfort in a time of need. Emotion swings both ways. Easier for some.
If you were just holed up in a room by yourself, you're really lost. You need to be around some people, talk, reach out to others. I mean, that does make a big difference for them, too.
Tougher for others.
It's pretty tough. It's hard to really find words for it. Choking up. It's like you're just numb for a while. You just can't expect something like this to happen.
Well, I want to say it to my best friend that I missed her, and I want to I can't wait till this flood clears out, because I want to be with her again.
You truly laugh and cry in the same minute, and you can see people and they can say something nice to you, and it just, you know, we're calling them mini breakdowns at my house. But
the shelter's television provides a link to what's going on back home. Many cannot turn away. They focus on their town, contemplating what they left behind and what someday they'll return to. Kurt Lenz, WDAZ, News Center 8.
A lot of emotions there.
Certainly. UND Lake Region, just one of the shelters in the Devil's Lake area. Camp Grafton has also opened its doors. Lakewood Bible Camp, setting up services for flood victims. And of course, a lot of homeowners open their doors for relatives and for people that they don't even know, to provide them some space while they wait to get back to town.
And Kurt Lenz is on the phone with us tonight. Kurt, what can you tell us about the mood at the shelters tonight?
Well, the mood right now, Jane, things are very emotional, of course. You have to consider people have been out of their homes now for well over 4 days for some, and it's really amazing seeing how not only they're coping with things, but how people at the college and in Devil's Lake are helping them cope. It's really a group effort, and it's very good to see people coming out of the woodwork to help people. It's extremely, extremely emotional seeing this. Some of the things that college is providing are, like I said in my story, tetanus and diphtheria shots. 500 doses of these tetanus shots were flown in from Bismarck via the National Guard. Phone centers to call. There's a movie room for kids who maybe don't have anywhere to go. 101 Dalmatians was being shown while I was videotaping some of the college. There are clothes that people are saying that they were going to save for a rummage sale, but now they say, well, this is more important. There's a wonderful story being out there, and I'm sure it's not just there, it's in the rest of North Dakota, so it's just a great thing going on right now.
Kurt, you just escaped the floodwaters here. You spent time here. You came into town to help us. You are our Devil's Lake reporter in our bureau out there, and you came in to help us on Thursday, not knowing that you would end up getting stuck here for some time. You escaped the floodwaters last night, but obviously you didn't escape the story. What's the mood just around the rest of Devil's Lake, away from the shelter? A lot of people thinking about what's happening here?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely making an impact. It's very ironic seeing people in Devil's Lake rally around people who are having flood problems because, in a sense, they sort of know what's going on because they've had their own flood problems. I mean, I've been covering so many flooding issues out in Devil's Lake, but it's an ironic twist of fate seeing they never, like I said, they never expected flood problems from Grand Forks to be in Devil's Lake, but now they have it, and they're doing their best to help the people from Grand Forks cope. Like I said, the population in Devil's Lake has increased about 25% since this disaster has occurred. There are services being held for people in the town, such as the library in town is having free library cards for people who want to check out books and read. Emergency prescriptions are being filled by pharmacists in town. Victims can cash checks without having an account at First Bank in Devil's Lake. And it's just an overwhelming show of how North Dakotans are rallying around people who are in need. It's just wonderful to see.
And a lot of students, I understand, will probably be re-enrolled in the Devil's Lake school system, and I understand you've been working on a story for that. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, tomorrow I plan on going into some of the school systems, whether public and elementary specifically, about how the schools themselves are helping children from the Grand Forks area come in and sort of reintroduce them to the schooling system. I mean, they've missed so many days of school already because of blizzards and the bad weather in the first half of the year that they're getting them to work. I talked to one mother who said it's wonderful that she took her child in to get her enrolled, and in 5 minutes after she enrolled, she had a box of crayons to color and draw with. So it's, like I said, it's really hard to describe, but it's wonderful to see.
A lot of students making new friends. The girl that you talked to in your story said she'll miss her friends, but I'm sure she will meet plenty more in Devil's Lake. Thanks, Kurt Lenz, for joining us over the phone tonight. Well, evacuees from Grand Forks are moving in with friends and families in South Dakota as well.
Emergency officials are urging those who flee to South Dakota to contact a local Red Cross chapter if they need assistance, and also to let them know that they are staying in that area. Spokesman for South Dakota Relief Effort says people who want to help flood refugees should donate cash. The cash will be turned into vouchers for flood victims so they can buy their own personal supplies.
And the American Red Cross is mobilizing hundreds of mental health workers from across the country to help the victims of the Red River flood. Weeks of sleepless nights, lost homes, and the uncertainty about the future guarantee many residents are going to be in need of some counseling. A social worker from Alabama who is working out of the Red Cross shelter in Fargo says she's already seen dozens of people already a day. And many North Dakotans could be out of work as well for months because of the damaged businesses, adding even more stress to their lives.
And the military is offering a wide range of help to flood victims in and around Greater Grand Forks. Pentagon spokesman Kenneth Bacon says the National Guard has called on almost 2,200 members on active duty to assist in the flooding crisis. Bacon also says some 560 members of the Army Corps of Engineers has been working on dikes, levees, and the related activities. That's happening up and down the Red River. He says they're working to stem the effects of the floods on facilities such as hospitals. Bacon says the Army Corps has fought floods in 33 separate locations in this region, providing about 5.5 million sandbags and installing 50 electric generators.
And we have seen many of the National Guard people driving back and forth in front of our station, many trucks, Humvee vehicles, the whole 9 yards. Stay with us. Our special flood coverage continues on News Center 8. We'll also include a report on what's happening up in the Northern Valley as they prepare for the flood.
My wish is to visit my grandparents on their farm and pet the cats and ride the horse and just be able to see them. My wish is to meet the Golden State Warriors basketball team.
My wish is to get a computer to help me in school.
I wish I had a mountain bike because I really enjoy being outdoors.
I like dinner.
These kids aren't asking for very much. Please, help us give it to them.
Oh, when hundreds, if not thousands, of Grand Forks residents had to flee their homes, they also had to flee their pets, didn't have time to get those pets, and they ended up having to leave them behind, and now they want them back.
That's right. Many sad stories, many happy reunions as well, though. Rescue crews have been using Coast Guard boats to find pets separated from their owners during the city's mass evacuation over the weekend. 9 volunteers worked from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon using boats that crawl through the Red River's dirty floodwaters. More than 500 rescue requests had come in by this afternoon alone, and a steady stream of pet owners shuffled through the Humane Society. So far, about a dozen pets had been found alive. I believe that's from this afternoon, but a few not quite a lucky ending right there. This is some video that ABC provided to us. This is what the pet rescue team does. They enter the homes and they chase the animals, try to find them. Not an easy task for some.
They put the gloves on just in case they
That's
get
right.
clawed by
Many scared animals. They don't know what to think. Their owners have left them for a few days now. It's a frightening experience for them. It looks like this home already prepared for their animals with covers on the sofas, and poor animals.
It's okay. Baby.
Oh.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Tasha.
That's why they wear the gloves.
That's why we were lucky enough to stay here.
That's right.
Over in the other room.
Yep, he's been hanging out here. And I think he's enjoying his stay.
He's probably got it better than the rest of us. He's got a place and food. He has a kennel.
It's okay. Yes. A little like the rattlesnake roundup in Texas there.
He'll be a lot happier, or she'll be a lot happier when she's finally reunited with her. Oh my.
This is what they have to go through to find these animals. Oh.
He's running.
Looks like he's still moving now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay.
It's amazing what animals can do to survive these conditions.
What's been happening is people have been calling the Humane Society and saying, I left my 2 cats at an apartment at such and such street, and if possible, then the rescue crews spend hour upon hour going to these homes if they are reachable, if it's not too dangerous for those doing the rescuing, and they do what they can to bring those animals out. And a lot of successes. And a lot of people, pet owners, are very happy to have those people out there.
Again, all of this is done out of the goodness of their hearts. And these animals will appreciate this in the long run. Not too happy about it right at the beginning.
Are definitely beginning to understand the reason for those.
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, a happy ending for some pet owners there.
They've already been reunited. We showed some video of a pet rescue in one of the first days after the flooding, and moments later somebody called the station saying she believed that was her cat, and we never did get a follow-up call on that, but she was pretty sure, and most pet owners know their kitty cat, even though there are 10,000 black and white cats in Grand Forks. They know which one is yours.
Just like picking out newborns, I believe. They all look mostly alike at the beginning, but for some reason the parents, and I guess pet owners consider themselves parents of their own pets, and they can pick them out a mile away. So if we do have that number, we'll bring that to you, the Humane Society number. We'll try to bring that to you a little bit later on in case you do have an animal that is in need of being rescued. Well, Grand Forks firefighters have controlled flames that destroyed a home earlier today in a flooded neighborhood in Grand Forks.
Fire Chief Richard Aulick says it is the 4th house fire in the past 2 days. Aulick says there also have been many smaller fires. He says the first 2 fires stemmed from electrical problems caused by the flood waters. The other 2 blazes are still being investigated.
Well, classes at 2 more North Dakota colleges are being canceled for the rest of the semester. Mayville State and the University of North Dakota Lake Region are calling off classes. The University of North Dakota in Grand Forks has already called off the rest of its spring semester and its graduation ceremonies as well. Ray Brown is the Vice President for Academic Affairs at Mayville State. He says people fleeing the Grand Forks flood are staying at his campus. He says about 900 people are either on campus or they've been placed in the community. And at UND Lake Region, Executive Dean Sharon Edemad says classes will be held Thursday and Friday, so each class can have one last session. And she says the school year will end after that.
And North Dakota and Minnesota high school athletes displaced by the floods, well, they can still compete in spring sports. North Dakota High School Activities Association and the Minnesota State High School League announced similar policies today that will allow athletes to enroll at other schools in their respective states. Those competing in golf, tennis, track and field can participate in meets scheduled by their new school, but they would compete as a student, as an athlete from their original school. As for Minnesota softball and baseball and North Dakota soccer and baseball, those athletes do go to another school. They obviously would compete only, or they would compete only on the junior varsity level, not on the varsity. They would participate on that team. And meanwhile, the future of the North Dakota State track meet remains undecided. It is scheduled, as it has been annually for many years, for late May on the University of North Dakota campus. But state high school officials do not know where it will be relocated. Most likely, though, will have to be relocated. Well, our weather has been so far nice and dry the last few days.
And John will let us know if it'll stay that way. His forecast is next.
If you sometimes forget things, and it's happening more often, it's not necessarily your age. Maybe you just have a lot on your mind. But it never hurts to be sure. There are people who can help. The National Institute on Aging has a booklet filled with useful information about forgetfulness and memory loss. To get your free copy, just call 1-800-438-4380. Don't forget.
Good evening. Pleasant weather across the northern plains. That continues to be the rule. I don't see any change in that in the near future, even though we are cooler than most of the coterminous 48 states. At least is about average, a little above average for the time of year, 50s to around 60 degrees. Warmer weather around the periphery of the country, and this is also where the storm track is located. Fairly active weather from the Pacific Northwest through the Rockies and across the southern plains. One major rain system producing some heavy thunderstorms today and last night from North Texas and then across the southeastern states this evening. There's another very strong storm moving onshore in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon through northern California. That is expected to produce heavy snowfall in the Colorado Rockies by tomorrow, and is another significant rain system across the plains. Locally, we just have a flow of dry, cool northeasterly breeze, and the April sunshine is heating it up to these nice temperatures, and that dry air is keeping a large area of rain pretty much stationary back to the south and west of us. You can see the clouds even this evening to the west. Showers continue out there. Occasional patches of clouds over Minnesota. That's just due to that April sunshine hitting a fairly moist ground, so we're going to see that from time to time, but the atmosphere is very sluggish. Sometimes it's tough for the clouds to break up, but it's a pretty good-looking weather pattern for us. 24 hours of radar showing almost continuous rain out to the west, but look how it's beginning to dry up a little bit, and it certainly isn't moving in our direction. So I think we're pretty safe in the rain department, at least for the next few days. Temperature-wise, where that dry air was feeding into northeast Minnesota, it dropped down into the 20s last night. Most of the rest of the area saw 30s. Grand Forks at 32 this morning, Devils Lake 34. Clouds kept Fargo up at 42 during the night. Daytime highs pretty much region-wide in the 50s to around 60 degrees. A few key sites, Devils Lake at 52, Roseau 54, Thief River Falls 55 today, and the Grand Forks Airport reporting a high of 59 degrees. On the big map, here is our storm system, one along the west coast.
The president said the people there are quite literally in the fight for their lives, and he promised hundreds of millions of dollars in federal aid to help them recover. In Grand Forks today as well, our White House correspondent John Donovan.
There was a need in Grand Forks today that this president knows better than most how to satisfy. It was the need for sympathy.
I don't recall ever in my life seeing anything like this, and I have been very impressed by the courage and the faith that all of you have shown in the face of what has been a terrible, terrible dilemma.
Not only did Mr. Clinton come to see for himself from the air how a river turned into a sea that has swallowed up whole towns, he also sat down and listened.
The citizens here have no basic services in sewer and water.
This was a meeting with local officials, mayors and health inspectors and fire wardens. None has slept much this week. Many were near tears talking to the president.
Hold them in your arms and you tell them it'll be all right, which you probably know it won't be, but you keep fighting.
But there was also humor. Pat Owens, who lost her home, is the mayor of Grand Forks.
This morning when I got ready, I was getting ready to come here to meet the president. Mayor Stouse and I were talking. We didn't have water and he still doesn't have water at this point. I thought, what do I wear?
Looks good.
The president saw for himself today why it will be weeks before people can return, and months before many will have homes they can live in.
This has been an expensive season for disasters. When the president flew over Grand Forks today, it was the second time this year he has visited a flood scene. The vice president has been to others, and all of them take money to clean up.
The first thing I did was to ask Congress to approve another $200 million in emergency funds for North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. Funds.
That $200 million would pay for emergency needs like food and blankets and fresh water. It will not give people their old lives back. That will take literally billions of dollars, much harder to come by than the best intentioned words of consolation. John Donovan, ABC News, with the president in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
The Red River, which, as we told you yesterday, flows north, is now threatening communities downstream from Grand Forks. As we said, north, evacuations have been ordered from Grand Forks to the Canadian province of Manitoba, towns in all places. In Grand Forks itself, the red is not expected to go down for days. As you look down from the helicopter, President Clinton said today, in every one of those houses there is another life story. He was right. ABC's Aaron Hayes on some of them.
Most has been surrendered to the flood here, but not everything.
This is Niagara 2 here.
at the telephone company, where floodwaters are still rushing in.
It's bubbling up through the floor. It's starting to seep through the walls.
They are fighting to keep the water from sinking the city's telephone system. For 3 days, the river has been trying hard to take it.
Well, like Bob put it one day, we were in the emergency room on Saturday and Sunday. Now we're probably up in the intensive care.
Water has been pressing in from everywhere.
We finally had to bring sandbags on the inside because the pressure on the doors started to work too much. We're staying here day and night. We've got sleeping quarters all over the place.
It is a risky fight. That they are winning is against all the odds.
I was amazed that the phone system was working, given the conditions here, given the fact that the infrastructure has been slowly crumbling under the onslaught from this water.
Even as the river advances, people are taking up the few positions that are left here to save what they can. Today, in the tiny part of the city not yet overtaken by the river, they are waging an all-out effort to hold back the water here to save their hospital. A mile-long dike they hope will divert the river away from here. It is their only hospital, evacuated days ago, but that, they say, was not a final surrender. At the sheriff's department, they pushed in to rescue their equipment from the river so they can keep going.
Get what we can, I guess.
If they lose to the river, at least, they say, they didn't surrender their spirit.
You think I should set the alarm? It's okay. You sure? Yeah.
They will hold on as long as they can.
Yeah, we're open. We're here. All right. See you. Bye.
Erin Hayes, ABC News, Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Again, that was seen earlier on World News Tonight, and I did recognize a few of the people in that
It's very
story.
odd to watch the evening news, the national news, and to see so many familiar faces. Grand Forks also featured earlier today on America's Good Morning America. Here's that report from early this morning.
Hundreds of people in towns north of Grand Forks are now evacuating as the river gets ready to crest in their area. They have seen the enormous damage to their neighbors. President Clinton will meet with some of those evacuees when he visits Grand Forks today. Here's ABC's Ron Claiborne on the search for shelter.
Where did they go? Where do 40,000 people who have abandoned their homes find shelter all at once?
One of the most difficult things I think we're going to be facing in this disaster is finding temporary housing.
One answer, callers who've besieged the local television station with offers of spare beds, rooms, garages, even barns.
Lawrence Sandlow from Winnipeg has some rooms for a family. He says pets are okay.
Oh, they've been calling from everywhere from Winnipeg to Wisconsin to Duluth to Montana, you name it.
Whole communities have literally opened their doors to the victims of the flood. The town of Thompson, North Dakota, about 11 miles south of Grand Forks, has taken in about 1,000 evacuees, as many people as live here. Lillian Sarazin and 10 other refugees found shelter in the home of James and Helen Robinson.
I had never met either one of them, and they were just as if I'd have been an old friend that had always been here, so I felt at home.
The others who left Grand Forks have ended up either at emergency shelters, 3,000 are being housed at an Air Force base west of town, or in motels, or else with relatives. They may be able to return home in a few weeks, but for now, these people, the city of Grand Forks itself, have been scattered by the flood. Ron Claiborne, ABC News, Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Among the evacuees at the Grand Forks Air Force Base are Marlo Cochran and her 4-year-old son, Trey. They join us this morning. Marlo, good morning.
Good morning.
How long have you been forced to make this Air Force Base your home now?
Since Saturday afternoon.
Tell me what conditions are like there. How are you and Trey getting by?
Well, we're doing good. They have hot meals. They provide us with, your necessities like your toothpaste and stuff. And we've gotten a change of clothes and some toys to keep him entertained.
Marlo, have you had a chance to see your house in Grand Forks yet?
Just what they show on TV. Pretty much, that's about it.
And how do you, we all, when we see those pictures, they are incredible, the devastation, and incredibly disturbing to us, and we're many miles away. What is that like when you see these pictures and know that that's your home?
Well, it's kind of depressing, but, like everybody's been saying, I'm just glad we haven't had any deaths yet, and that we really did work together as a community to try to save our town.
You've got about 3,000 folks up there at the Air Force Base with you. How are you guys keeping each other's spirits up?
Oh, we talk about different things. Like with the older people, we talk about memories they had and stuff, and just try to keep them pretty much happy. We're trying to keep everything upbeat.
What are people
so we don't get depressed.
What are people telling you about when you might be able to go home?
They said about 3 weeks before, you know, we could maybe get the water down and get our water system back up. So we're hoping for that.
Just out of curiosity, Marla, do you plan to keep on making your home in Grand Forks?
Oh, yes. I've been through a lot here. I'm going to hang in here.
All right. Marlo Cochran, your son Trey, best of luck to you both. Hope everything turns out really well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was on Good Morning America today. Grand Forks Herald editor Mike Jacobs was also interviewed on Good Morning America today about how the paper is keeping the presses running despite the devastating fire that destroyed the Herald's newsroom and destroyed some valuable archives. Let's take a look at that interview.
Mike Jacobs. Mike, this has been quite a week for you.
Yes, it has been quite a week.
I would understand if you couldn't publish, given the devastation in that city, but you have gone to such great lengths to keep printing. Why is it so important?
Well, it's about what's left of the community. In a weird way, we've all been spread to the four winds, and the Herald is a tangible thing. We can get it to people, they can hold it, they can look at it and reflect on what's happened in their lives. So I think we're a touchstone for Grand Forks, and I think an important one. And besides that, this is a hell of a story, and we're journalists.
Where's to distribute? I mean, how do you, since people aren't in their homes, what are you doing? Getting it out to shelters and to...
We're taking tens of thousands of newspapers to shelters all over North Dakota and northern Minnesota. We're distributing in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and we're trying to get the paper to our regular readers, regular subscribers, people who've depended on us for a century, up and down the Red River Valley, and you know, we're trying to get it to people who are regular readers,
Mike, who
are not being flooded.
We saw just a moment ago the picture of your building, which was gutted in the weekend fire. What have you lost?
I haven't been down there, but you know, the whole, all of the newsroom operation, the circulation department, our payroll records, we are really handicapped as a business and as a newsroom, and you know, we've lost an incredible amount of history, things that just are irreplaceable, and we've lost. All of us have lost personal effects. One of our staff members was well along on a book, and he had given me the printout to read. It was in my briefcase. His copy was on his computer, and I abandoned the briefcase on my way out the door, and he abandoned the computer, so he's out all of that work. So a lot of past, a lot of potential is gone.
I saw your headline yesterday that said, "Come hell and high water." What's your headline today?
You know, I don't know, because the guy who's doing the front page is in St. Paul, and the paper's not up here yet.
We see the pictures, Mike, and obviously those give you some sense of what's going on physically, but we can't feel what's happening there among the people. Can you give me any sense of it?
We're still standing. We're still standing, and we're facing the right direction. We're facing uphill, and we're starting to put our lives back together, individually and as a community. We're going to make it. It's going to be very, very difficult. I just heard from you, actually, that I'm not going to be back in my house. I'm not going to be able to see my house for 3 weeks. And that's very, very hard. It's very hard to think that I'm not going to be able to have a place, really, for that long. And then not to have any idea of what it's going to be like and what we're going to have to go through to make it livable. So it's hard.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you joining us this morning. These are long days. I know it takes, you have enormous logistical problems to overcome to publish the paper, and I appreciate both you doing that and you're being with us. You talk about the indomitability of Grand Forks and great institutions like the Herald. Thanks for being here. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
And And that was on Good Morning America this morning, and he was talking about he didn't know what the headline said. Oh, this is what today's paper looks like. It said Clinton will see the devastation, and he did get a bird's eye view of that today. The Herald keeping the presses running despite losing their newsroom. Again, it's produced in Manville at the high school, and they have it printed at the St. Paul Pioneer Press, so quite an effort on their
Our
part.
hearts go out to our friends over at the Herald. We fortunately are somewhat surrounded by water. We still have access to our building, and we don't have nearly the hardships that they do. It makes our situation, sleeping on the floor and spending long days, seem much less burdensome when you see what's happening to the print media in this town.
That's right.
With the Herald building going down. So.
We'll have more flood coverage right after this.
What do parents say about Shriners Hospitals?
My boy was slowly losing the use of his leg, and I went to several national organizations, and they all turned me down. To this day, I thank the Lord for Shriners. I see them in the parade, and I get a lump in my throat, and I feel like saluting the entire organization. These people are so caring. Their staff at the hospital is unequal to any I've ever seen. I don't care if you're black, brown, born in Mexico or in Africa. They don't ask where you're from. They merely say, what can I do for you?
Shriners Hospitals, providing free expert medical care to children with orthopedic and burn problems. For information, call this toll-free number.
And Jane, now we wanted to look at the latest flood statement from the National Weather Service as of 9:45 tonight, and I guess you would call it good news. They say the Red River in the Grand Forks, East Grand Forks area is cresting, holding relatively steady around 54 feet this evening. Little change is expected in the river, though, for the next 36 to 48 hours. And of course, as we well know, the previous flood of record here was 48.8 in 1979. So we are 5 feet over, even more than 5 feet over that record. Unbelievable. Red River near Oslo is cresting today around 38 feet. Little change is expected in Oslo. It is, the flow is being diverted overland and bypassing the river gauge. Drayton is expected to crest between 48 and 49, and we do have some information about those communities. There is Drayton, 4504 right now in Drayton. In fact, that's pretty close to what we have, drawing closer to there. There's a lot to go yet in Drayton. Pembina 58 to 59 is the potential crest. That will happen on Sunday or Monday. So there still is some time in Pembina. The current level in Pembina, 52.35, approaching their record. And again, they're looking to go 4 or 5 feet over their record as well. Obviously, as you can see from that map, a lot of tributaries feeding into the Red River as we move north, and those are contributing to the problem. So if we call it good news, is at least that they now are saying that they believe it is crested. There was some confusion, or not confusion, but some uncertainty because of the lack of a river gauge, the lack of knowing what such a large volume is doing behind us, a volume of water. Nothing they've ever seen before. It's hard to predict things that go over and above any scale you've ever set up. We also want to mention that in Fargo, they are having a pretty good fall of the river. They are at 37.7 as of 10 p.m. They're expected to fall to 37 by Friday. I mean, it's still slow, but it's down at least somewhat from the 12-hour change was, well, not incredible, but at least it's going down in Fargo. And of course, all that water still has to pass through here on its way north.
And we do hope to see some pictures a little bit later on from the northern from the Northern Valley. If we could take a look at some aerial photos that were taken over Grand Forks area today. Again, some areas look dry, but then quickly turns to submerged land. Here we're flying over around the area of 32nd Avenue South, and we are heading east toward 24th Avenue, I believe. And this is 24th Avenue South right here, I believe. Again, some areas look high and dry, but the access to them is another story.
I believe these are the pictures shot by Aaron Quanbeck as he flew with the... Would that be accurate? That appears to be some of what we looked at earlier today. Aaron was flying in the, as a pool reporter in the helicopter that was up at the same time accompanying the president along his flight. Now we get into the areas where there is more water.
I was up on the roof of WDAZ today to catch a glimpse of the presidential helicopter flying by, and got a picture of that for my flood scrapbook, I guess you could say. He will have quite a story to tell once he gets back and talks to members of Congress about the flooding situation here in the greater Grand Forks area. They circled the city a few times and got quite a view from the air.
We mentioned it at 6, haven't mentioned it here, but 5 cabinet members with the president today. Quite a show from Washington, D.C., almost clearing out the top level of government to come to basically what they would consider tiny Grand Forks. Obviously one of the top 5 population centers in North Dakota, but to them probably a very tiny community, although the president did say he'd never seen anything like this in a community this large, having to have evacuated 90% of its residents, and on the East Grand Forks side, basically 98% of its residents have left East Grand Forks. We certainly know that we take some complaints that we have not shown enough of East Grand Forks, and that's what some of this images will show you. Today, unfortunately, most of our coverage focused on the Air Force, as many of our crews, you can't ignore the president coming to town. That's why we appreciate being able to bring you some of the ABC feeds. Those people in town have been very nice to us, and hopefully we've helped them out some, and they've helped us out. And that allows us to do some of the other things as we try to cover the president with our small staff here at WDAZ.
Okay, we're going to maybe change tape machines here. The video's jumping around just a little bit. We were talking about the pet rescue earlier, and you did see the animals who weren't too happy to see the pet rescue people right away, but I'm sure they will have a happy reunion with their owners very soon. Here's the numbers to call. You might get a busy signal right away. I know some people on our staff have some animals that they want rescued from their homes as well, but give them a try. Keep trying. The number for the Grand Forks Humane Society, 775-3732. Another number to try is 775-0858. And they will try their hardest to get your animal. Again, some of these animals have incredible survival instincts. So we saw one cat that was pulled from a wet basement, a submerged basement. So hopefully they'll find many animals who are still hanging in there, so to speak, during the flood.
Perhaps the most called numbers behind the EOCs in the 2 respective communities is the pet rescue, and of course another big one is the Red Cross number, which hopefully we can bring you also, a place where you can call, and if your relatives have registered at an official shelter, then hopefully the Red Cross can tell you where they are. I believe we'll try and bring you that number shortly. It's a 1-800 number, a national number, where they have the database set up. Excuse me, my voice was a lot worse this weekend. I lost my voice and got a terrible cold fighting my own battle on Thursday, and it was pretty much gone all weekend. I thought it was back. Well, actually, it's much better now than it was before, so I'll take what I have, I guess.
We're trying to determine which area we're looking at right now. Again, homeowners would probably recognize this area right away. A less densely populated area that we're flying over at the moment.
Hard to believe the water seems to have actually sort of goes around and circles the community far to the east and west on both sides. Aaron says there were a number of other media on this particular helicopter, all kind of jostling for position to see out the window. Oftentimes they...
That might have been Demers Overpass, I'm not sure though, or the Point Bridge area.
I believe this is the point, the area where we got a little confused earlier today because it's just hard to tell from the air until we come across a noted landmark in Grand Forks, which are not easy to spot, or in East Grand Forks.
This is the Kennedy Bridge right here, connecting Grand Forks and East Grand Forks on Gateway Drive.
So that would be Grand Forks to the left of the screen coming into East Grand Forks, correct?
I'm not
Or
sure.
we're
This
going the
looks
other
like
way?
we're going into
Okay,
Grand
we went
Forks
the other
right
way.
here.
I thought that was the golf course to the north because there were no homes there, the Grand Forks, or the East Grand Forks golf course. But it was just probably quite possible homes buried in that area. I know there are some.
Again, it's a little hard to tell. Well, maybe we are going into East Grand Forks.
Yeah.
We believe it is East Grand Forks. We apologize for saying Grand Forks. And this is the American Crystal Sugar Plant, I believe.
And their message earlier today was for their employees to call in. They are desperately trying to decide what to do for both of their plants in East Grand Forks and in Drayton. Obviously, that one of the largest employers in the agriculture industry in this area, along with the state mill and elevator on the North Dakota side, that appeared to be fairly dry in some of the earlier pictures that we have seen of that facility, and so did the American Crystal, but obviously without water. American Crystal is probably having trouble. I believe they are on the city water system.
Again, some homes in the outlying area of East Grand Forks. And roads flooded here. I'm not even certain which road that is.
But as you take that perspective, that horizon, and realize that you're looking off into the distance for miles and all you see is water.
I wonder if that's a mobile home. Those two, it looks like two pieces of wood in the middle of a stream, in the middle of your screen there.
It may very well be, because they look very big in relation to the trees that are very near them. And this is the unbelievable devastation in some of the lower lying areas of our community. Barely, rooftops barely sticking out of the water, some completely submerged in that just murky, dark water.
Again, East Grand Forks under a mandatory evacuation order, and understandable too.
Jane, we look at these, sometimes we've seen these the second or third time, and it's just hard to imagine that this is really our community that looks this way.
I remember when the flooding in Iowa here a year or so ago, and we had seen houses actually torn off their foundations and floating downstream, and you usually think of it as something that happens somewhere else, but never here. You see it on the national news, oh, that would never happen here. But now we are making national and world headlines with our devastation.
We've also taken a lot of calls wondering why they don't go farther to the west. We do have some video that's taken farther away from the river, but certainly